Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Luck-seizing system, dominate the universe. Chapter 1. It was late at night. Zhao Yu dragged his tired body and staggered down the narrow and dirty streets of the urban village. The weather was very cold, and the cold wind blew one after another, whining, like a knife, blowing hard across his face again and again. Zhao Yu curled his neck, put his hand to his mouth and took a breath of hot air, and breathed hard. He rubbed his cold face. The street was dark, and the light from the street lamp at the intersection was already dim and almost non-existent. Zhao Yu's footsteps, tapping and tapping, were very clear in this cold night. At this time, most people were in warm beds, either already soundly asleep, or playing on their mobile phones and watching TV. Leisurely and contented. Zhao Yu wanted to do it too, but he was unwilling to give up 3 hours of overtime pay. That's 1.5 times. It's time to rent a house. Zhao Yu couldn't help but quicken his pace. It would be good to get into bed a second earlier. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared out of nowhere, like thousands of suns rising at the same time. Zhao Yu closed his eyes due to the stimulating conditioned reflex, and then lost consciousness. A red ball whose appearance could not be seen clearly, and something emitting huge light suddenly jumped out of the void, and violently collided with a chaotic thing jumping out from another direction, and Zhao Yu just happened to between them, at the center of the impact. The speed of the two is beyond description in words. It is faster than light and faster than electricity. Before they collide together, Zhao Yu's body between the two has turned into nothingness, leaving only one that ordinary people cannot see. The human figure stood there in confusion, and instantly turned into a spot of light. This collision contained many mysteries. It was silent. Even the strong light and waves produced by the collision did not spread even 1 meter away, as if bound by a mysterious force. The bright red thing exploded into a bright red mist during the impact. It seemed to have spirituality. It rolled up the light spot that Zhao Yu's soul turned into and directed it towards the chaotic thing that was stunned for a moment after the impact. Pounce, and then a small black hole suddenly appeared. The two of them flashed and everything disappeared. When Zhao Yu regained consciousness, before he opened his eyes, he knew what the environment around him was like, a dark and small room. It's like an instinct. You don't rely on sight or hearing, you only need to feel, to know everything within a radius of 10 meters. And it is more comprehensive and sharper than vision and hearing. Even the sound and movement of the fly in the corner flapping its wings are clearly engraved in my mind. Zhao Yu felt a little strange in his heart. He opened his eyes blankly and looked around, and found that everything in his vision was not the same as what he felt just now. And the vision is also extraordinary. It's still that fly, in such a dark room, still in the backlight of the corner, its every move is actually under Zhao Yu's nose. What's wrong with me? He shook his head, and suddenly, a huge and disorganized information exploded in his mind. He opened his mouth and took a breath of cool air. After a while, Zhao Yu calmed down. There was a look of confusion and disbelief on his face. New York, Brooklyn. Those strange information came from another memory, the memory of a man named Owen Green. It's as if Zhao Yu's own personal experience is so clear, an American and an orphan. He grew up in an orphanage in Brooklyn. He came out of society at the age of 16 and is now a courier delivery man for a courier company. Zhao Yu's own memory collided with this information. Orphan, working for more than 10 years, working overtime, came to an abrupt end. The two memories were intertwined, sorted out, and finally calmed down. He let out a long breath, rolled out of bed, walked to the window with bare feet, and opened the curtains. The sunshine outside the window, the traffic and people of various races on the street, the English signs of the shops, all the information came together in Zhao Yu's mind at the first time. After a long time, the curtains were closed with a clatter, and Zhao Yu slowly walked back to the bedside and sat down, the expression on his face changing inexplicably. Have you traveled through time? He had actually confirmed the current situation, but his subconscious was still hesitant. And he also has special abilities. His senses are extremely sharp, and no information within 10 meters can escape the capture of his senses. It is also very natural and can be controlled at will. It is as instinctive as eating, drinking, and walking. Suddenly, he grinned. He has no nostalgia for his original life, no matter whether he has traveled through time or another. This should be a good thing. Right, the system integration is completed. Hello host, the luck-seizing system is at your service. Who? Zhao Yu stiffened. System, he suddenly thought, could it be the legendary Golden Finger? Thinking of this, amid the faint fear, a hint of joy arose spontaneously. After calming down, I couldn't help but try to ask, the luck-seizing system, right? What's going on? How did I get to the United States? The host's questions have not exceeded the current authority and can be answered. The host's current world is the Marvel Universe Earth, Brooklyn, New York, USA. His identity is a yellow and white mixed-race orphan, 18 years old, and a professional express deliveryman. Marvel. Zhao Yu's voice suddenly rose. You brought me to Marvel. The host's arrival in the Marvel world has something to do with this system. The specific reason exceeds the host's current authority, and the system will not answer it. Quote. Zhao Yu was speechless and choked, took a breath, changed his mind, and said angrily, then why did you bring me to the Marvel world? I am an ordinary wage earner and an orphan. I am already miserable enough. Please have mercy on me and let me go back, can you? Reject the host's unreasonable request. Unreasonable request. Zhao Yu's heart moved, and he raised his voice and shouted, you brought me to a strange world without my consent, and I asked you to send me back. Is this unreasonable? Are you being unreasonable? Human reason has nothing to do with the system. Zhao Yu. The system didn't care what Zhao Yu's expression was and spoke directly. Now explain the basic functions of the system to the host. The system has two major sections, one is the task section, and the other is the exchange section. The host obtains luck points by completing the tasks released by the system. Everything you need to exchange. Release the mission now. The ultimate mission of the Marvel Universe. Refine OAA, seize control of the Marvel Multiverse, teach all spirits, and become the Tao Ancestor. Mission reward. Luck worth 1 trillion, an innate treasure, and host authority upgraded by 1 level. Time limit. None. The mission failed and the host died. Main mission 1. Found a sect and claim the title of Taoist Ancestor. Mission reward. 10,000 fortune points, a luck-controlling treasure, and a 9th level cave and paradise. The time limit is 3 months. Side mission. To be triggered. Listening to the cold mechanical voice in his mind, Zhao Yu felt a chill permeate his soul. Look at those so-called tasks, refining OAA. Become a Taoist ancestor. Are you sure this isn't a joke? What is OAA? Although Zhao Yu is not very familiar with Marvel, he has a little understanding of it because of Hollywood superhero movies. That is the ultimate god of Marvel, a so-called unsolvable existence. Now that he is actually being asked to refine, isn't this sending him to his doorstep to seek death? He was heartbroken. He felt that life was meaningless and it was all about death. After all, Zhao Yu still had a bit of luck, and couldn't help but said, what if I don't do the task? Can I live a peaceful and ordinary life? If system tasks are not completed within the task time limit, corresponding levels of punishment will be imposed based on the importance of the task. Punishment. Zhao Yu hesitated, his luck shattered, and couldn't help shouting, get out of here, get out of my head, what a bullshit system, get out of here. The host is judged to have insulted the system, and 9 levels of punishment will be implemented. Ah! Zhao Yu was stunned, then screamed, and rolled to the ground. Then his body became stiff, as if he was bound by something, and could not move at all. He only rolled his eyes, his face was black, his veins were exposed, and his saliva was drooling. The flow is long, and the neck seems to be stuck, and the mouth can only make a ho-ho-ho sound, like a drowning person on the verge of death. After an unknown amount of time, Zhao Yu turned over with difficulty, letting the saliva flow from his face, and lay down like a log. He was hopeless. Is that punishment? Life is simply worse than death. A kind of pain bursts out from deep in the head, deep in the organs, deep in the bone marrow, wave after wave, one wave after another, as if it is going to crush the person from soul to body. Zhao Yu was certain that if he hadn't been restrained and unable to move, he would have committed suicide by hitting the wall. That is simply not a pain that humans can endure. After a long time, his wooden face finally regained some human color. He wiped his face feebly, his eyes dull. Can you tell me what the punishment level is? There are 10 levels of punishment, with level 9 being the lowest and super being the highest. Level 9 is the lowest. His stiff face suddenly smiled, and he smiled with tears streaming down his face. Is this still the lowest? The lowest. Yes host, level 9 is the lowest. Zhao Yu finally burst into tears. You are trying to kill me. You might as well just kill me. I can't live anymore, so kill me. The system will not erase the host, please rest assured. Zhao Yu finally had nothing to say. Is this the legendary saying of being unable to survive and unable to survive? This is forcing him to go on the road. If he doesn't go on the road, he will not die. Even if he is tossing and tossing, he will collapse. Is there such a dark system? I admit it. Zhao Yu gritted his teeth, stared, and the muscles on his face twitched. He seems to have seen his miserable future. The host can accept this system from the bottom of his heart, and this system is very happy. The host has made a wise decision. However, the system reminds the host not to go against the system, otherwise the consequences will be unpredictable. Based on the premise that the host accepts this system, the system begins to issue initial benefits. The initial benefits are as follows. Luck value of 100, and only one lottery chance. Zhao Yu lay in a daze, panting, ignoring the so-called initial benefits. The aftereffects of the punishment were still affecting him, and he couldn't lift any strength in his body. Fortunately, there seemed to be a warm stream of heat flowing slowly, gradually calming down the sequelae, making him feel much better. After a long time, he got up and sat down on the bed. You just boarded the black ship like this and you can't even follow me. It's such a failure. People who travel through time are all uncles. They are just vassals of the system and so on. It's the other way around here. But now I have no choice but to take one step. Take a look. He pondered for a moment and cheered up a little. This so-called system is wrong. What if this fool can hear my voice? His expression froze, and then he tentatively said in his heart, System, do you know what I was thinking just now? The system has no intention of spying on the host's mind. Please rest assured. Zhao Yu rolled his eyes and couldn't help but feel something in his heart. He was instantly sure that the luck-seizing system could not spy on his thoughts. Otherwise, just using the word will inevitably result in another punishment. But this system must have great powers, how could it not be able to read your own thoughts? He was confused. However, Zhao Yu had some other ideas in his mind as he could avoid being read by the system. He took a deep breath, suppressed his thoughts, and thought to himself, System, where is my initial benefit? In order to facilitate the host experience, the system is fully digitized. The host can see it by calling the system. Zhao Yu exhaled and tried, System, come out. Suddenly, a familiar light curtain like a game menu suddenly appeared in front of him. Zhao Yu was stunned, looking at a strange-looking full-length figure and the data on the side on the big light screen, and couldn't help but ask, who is this? According to the game attribute mode that the host is most familiar with, the host's physical attributes are presented in the form of data. You read that right, host, this is you, the host. Me, Zhao Yu pointed to his nose, is this what I look like? The pupils of the eyes are a little blue, and the bridge of the nose is a little higher. Is this a mixed race? He is handsome, but how could it be me? As a reminder, the host is possessed by time travel. Ah, Zhao Yu suddenly realized. Okay, time travel possession, right. A mixed race person is a mixed race person. At least the yellow bloodline is dominant. He laughed at himself and focused on the data next to the full-length portrait. Name, Zhao Yu Irving Green. Race, human. Pedigree, unknown. Physical strength, 2 average 1 for ordinary adults. Soul strength, 2 normal 1. A few simple lines of data roughly display Zhao Yu's physical data. He savored it carefully and thought to himself, the average attribute of ordinary people is 1. In other words, I am now twice as strong as ordinary people. Is this a benefit brought by time travel? He locked his eyes on the unknown item of blood again and concentrated slightly. This system is definitely not an ordinary system. If you look at the tasks released, you will know that the target is directly at the boss of the Marvel multiverse. But at first, you can't pry into your own voice. It seems that you can only call out, that is, speak to the system in a targeted manner. Only then will you know. Finally, it was impossible to identify the bloodline. There must be some reason for this. But he couldn't figure it out, and the system definitely wouldn't tell him. Zhao Yu felt that this should be a good thing for him. The first impression the system gave Zhao Yu was very bad. It would be really heartbreaking if everything about him was exposed to the system and he had no privacy at all. Now it seems that this system may also have flaws. This made Zhao Yu feel much more at ease. Then, Zhao Yu turned his attention to the two lonely options on the side. One is the task option. When you open it, you will see the two tasks just released by the system. After a cursory glance, he turned off the character option and opened the exchange option. The redemption options are like a game mall, divided into 3 areas: skills, items and sundries. The Dharma Gate area gathers various exercises, combat techniques, spells, magical powers, and formations. However, what Zhao Yu saw was that the most expensive ones were only a few methods worth 100 Qi luck points, such as basic talismans, 1 yuan Qi training methods, etc. Looking at the balance of 100 luck points in the lower right corner, Zhao Yu knew that this was related to his purchasing power. If it weren't for the 100 luck points brought by the initial benefits, I might not be able to see anything. The item area is an area that collects various magic weapons, formation discs, formation flags, alchemy furnaces, talisman pens, talisman papers and other items. The most expensive thing Zhao Yu could see was also worth 100 luck points. Finally, there is the miscellaneous area, which has a variety of things and everything. There are techniques for forging weapons, recipes for refining pills, talisman papers for making talismans, materials, medicines, ordinary books, and even finished pills and talismans for sale. Everything you can think of is here. After browsing the junk area for a while, Zhao Yu locked his sights on the Dharma Gate area. Being kidnapped into the Marvel world by a black and shiny system, whether it is the sense of security that Zhao Yu desperately needs or the tasks that must be completed to avoid being punished, in this bizarre world, power comes first. And power comes from skills. Of course, in the Marvel world, poor people rely on mutation, and rich people rely on technology, which are also ways to gain power. But the Marvel world does not have a complete power system. An incomplete power system means risks and an unclear view of the way forward. Since you have boarded the black ship of the system and cannot escape without using system resources, it is simply a problem with your brain. Although this system is very dark, it makes Zhao Yu feel uneasy. He stared at the technique area for a while, and suddenly said, "System, what are the best 9th level techniques? List those with a luck value of less than 100. Because the host does not have enough permissions to use the corresponding system functions for free, 10 luck points can be deducted instead. Should I deduct it?" Zhao Yu opened his mouth, the flames in his heart rising, and he could hardly help but curse out loud. However, considering the viciousness of the system, he suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, "Duck it, buckle it." As the words fell, all the miscellaneous kung fu books in the Dharma sect area disappeared one by one. In the end, only 3 kung fu books were left hanging alone. The luck value in the lower right corner instantly dropped from 100 to 90. Ignoring the pain in his body, Zhao Yu quickly opened his eyes and looked carefully. 9 Turn Yuan Gong. The method of refining the qi of 3 elements into 1. Holy Witch Dao Qinglian meditation method. 9 Turn Yuan Gong, he said in disbelief. Isn't this the Taoist legendary divine power of protection, known as the 9 refining 9 turns, the supreme method of sanctifying the body? You can buy it for 100. He was amused for a moment, and then his face dropped. He then remembered that he only had 90 luck points left. Host, please don't misunderstand. The system voice sounded. 9 turns of Yuan Gong is the method of opening up the sky and Pangu. 1 turn of 9 refinements, 9 turns of 81 refinements, 99 turns to return to true form, and the body becomes holy. This is the supreme method of enlightenment. Complete. The 9 transformation Yuan Gong requires a qi luck value of 1 trillion. Then this. Zhao Yu pointed at the famine district and was speechless. Are you entertaining me? The system has no intention of entertaining the host. The first step of the 9 turn Yuan Gong is worth 100 luck points. I knew it. Zhao Yu felt the suffocation in his chest skyrocketing, and the veins on his face were exposed. Then what is this 3 yuan refining method? What about the Holy Wizard Dao Qinglian meditation method? The method of refining qi with the return of 3 elements to 1, also known as the Tao of Chaos book. It is based on Hundong Tai Wu Yuan Gao Sheng Jade Void Qi, Qihan Tai Wu Yuan Zan Sheng Purple Void Qi, and Mingji Zan Tong Yuan Supreme Pure Void Qi. 3 yuan and 3 refinements, 3 yuan in 1, reverse proof of innateness, and see the great way. It is a supreme method that is not inferior to the complete 9-turn yuan gong. As for the Qinglian meditation method of the Holy Wizard Tao, it is the highest meditation method of the Wizard Tao. The profound and profound aspects are no less than the first two. What a treasure book of the great avenue of chaos, what a chaotic whole is too meaningless, I feel lofty when I hear it. Zhao Yu's eyes were hot, but he could only sigh in his heart. It is conceivable that whether it is the 3 yuan refining method or the Holy Wizard Tao Qinglian meditation method, what is hanging in front of you now is probably only the most basic part. However, I can't even afford this most basic part. You can only look at it, but you can't touch it. It's like going to a hotel with a female ticket to book a room. I was so happy that I had already eaten a bottle of Viagra, but I learned that my aunt was here. That kind of depression is simply driving people crazy. Fortunately, Zhao Yu was open-minded. After thinking about it, he felt a little more comfortable, at least he knew the existence of these 3 skills. In the future, he would have the luck value and just exchange it slowly. He made up his mind that no matter what, he would have less to do with the system in the future. It would be best never to make any requests to the system, otherwise he would be angry to death. Looking at the 3 dazzling peerless skills with nostalgia, Zhao Yu smashed his mouth and forced himself to move his eyes. Where is my initial benefit? Isn't there a lottery? Where is it? Is the host sure to conduct the only lottery? The only time? Zhao Yu frowned. Can you explain it? Of course, if you want luck, forget it. After suffering a loss once, Zhao Yu would never fall down in the same place a second time. The host consults the initial welfare-related information, and the system does not charge any fees. Then tell me quickly, Zhao Yu said in an impatient tone. This system does not have a lottery function. Due to special reasons, the initial reward host will only have one chance to draw a lottery. Special reason. Zhao Yu thought for a moment and did not intend to continue asking. Since it's only this time, there's no need to count on lottery draws or anything like that in the future. He sighed slightly in his heart. Just smoke it. As you wish. Zhao Yu's eyes flickered, and a huge roulette wheel appeared in front of him. This roulette wheel is chaotic, it seems to have infinite colors, and it seems to have no color at all. It seems to be infinite, it seems to be infinitesimal, it seems to be infinitely far, it seems to be infinitely close. It is a very strange feeling. Zhao Yu ignored the system's urging and looked at it carefully. The roulette wheel is roughly divided into hundreds of areas. There is a pointer in the middle. You can guess where the pointer points and what you draw will be. But hundreds of areas were all blurry, and nothing could be seen inside. Zhao Yu frowned, feeling even more unhappy. Does the host start the lottery? Why urge? Zhao Yu muttered. Pull, smoke, let's start. The lottery begins until the host tells it to stop. Then stop. The pointer turned suddenly, and with Zhao Yu's extremely keen senses, he couldn't see a trace of it, as if the pointer had disappeared. But Zhao Yu knew that this was because the speed was too fast and he could not see clearly. From the start to the stop, there were at most 5 seconds in between, and he didn't know how many times the pointer turned. Zhao Yu just stared blankly, praying secretly in his heart. In a place where Zhao Yu could not see, in the lottery roulette, a faint red light lurked. When the pointer slowed down, it suddenly sprang out and then disappeared. Then Zhao Yu saw that the pointer stopped. In the area pointed to, the fog dispersed, revealing an antique treasure chest. Zhao Yu rubbed his hands and waited for the system to speak, but for a long time, the system was silent. He felt a little strange and asked, System, where is the thing I drew? The host has drawn a mysterious treasure box. Do you want to take it? Zhao Yu didn't hear a hint of hesitation in this voice. Receive. He just stared at the treasure box and made a decisive decision. As soon as he finished speaking, a simple treasure box about 10 centimeters long and wide fell into Zhao Yu's arms out of thin air. Zhao Yu thought for a while, turned off the system light curtain, put the treasure box on the bedside, and opened it carefully. There was no earth-shattering vision or gorgeous brilliance. As the lid of the treasure chest opened, a ball of light and a palm-sized green jade tablet appeared in sight. Zhao Yu took a deep breath and stretched out his hand to slowly touch the light ball. The light ball seemed to have spirituality. It flew up to Zhao Yu's fingertips and disappeared immediately. Immediately, Zhao Yu's head hurt. It seemed as if endless information exploded, making his brain feel hot. He couldn't help but hug his head. After a while, he breathed out slightly, and the corners of his mouth turned up slightly. Chaos true form. 9 turn yuan gong, hee. His heart moved and he laughed inexplicably. But it turned out that the light group turned out to be the true form of chaos, the complete version of the 9 turn yuan gong practice method. Although it is a pity that there is only the first 9 turn method instead of the complete 9 turn 81 method, Zhao Yu is already very satisfied. You know, the first round and the first refinement alone require 100 luck points, and God knows how much the complete first round and 9 refinements require. Zhao Yu already has a deep understanding of how dark the system is. Now that this expense is directly eliminated, how much time and effort will be saved? It's like a loser who has just come out of the grassroots society and managed to get a rich and beautiful woman. The initial stage of his life has been directly raised to a level that ordinary people can't imagine. Isn't it cool? Of course, it's not the most enjoyable. The best part is that the system is deflated. Recalling that after the previous lottery was completed, the system remained silent for a long time, Zhao Yu's heart changed and he chuckled secretly. Trick me, hee. Although he didn't understand what was going on, Zhao Yu guessed that the system could not control the lottery just now. Otherwise, how could you give him such a big gift package? He had repeatedly suffered defeats in front of the system before, but now he finally made a comeback. Although it had nothing to do with Zhao Yu himself, he was very happy. Zhao Yu knew that he might never have such an opportunity again in the future. After all, there was only one lottery draw, and this technique carried some additional information, telling Zhao Yu that he would have to redeem it himself for each subsequent transfer of techniques, and also reminded him it would be best for him to exchange the 3 elements into one qi refining method and practice it at the same time. This, to some extent, increases Zhao Yu's burden. But for Zhao Yu, everything is difficult at the beginning. With a good start, the road ahead will be much easier. It's infinitely better than not being able to afford good things, buying some junk and just practicing. After a rough taste of the chaos real body transformation cultivation method imprinted in his mind, Zhao Yu opened his eyes and set his sights on the jade tablet in the treasure box. He stretched out his hands and carefully held up the jade plaque. He saw a flash of green light on the jade plaque, and a message appeared in his mind. The Holy Summoning Card. Recognize its owner by dripping blood. It can summon a ray of projection from the saints in the heavens to possess. Within half an hour, it has the basic ability of 1/1000th of the summoned saint. The number of times is limited to 3 times. After 3 times, the Holy Summoning Card is broken. Zhao Yu was so excited that he almost jumped up. This is a life-saving thing. All the gods are holy, and you will feel great when you hear it. Although it is only 1/1000th of a billionth of the basic ability and there is a limit on the number of times, it is still much stronger than what he is now, right? After playing with the jade tablet carefully for a while, Zhao Yu chuckled, carefully bit off his finger, and smeared a wisp of blood on the Holy Summoning Tablet. The Holy Summoning Tablet then turned into a ray of green light and disappeared into the palm of his hand. Immediately, he called up the system again. System, I think I'm really lucky. Zhao Yucheng smiled happily, his heart moved, and a jade medal slowly appeared in his palm, saying, Look, the summoning tablet, my dear, save your life, thank you. The system is speechless. Zhao Yu did not say anything about obtaining the Chaos True Body technique at the same time. It seemed like a voice told him that the Summoning Saint card could be known to the system, but the fact that he had obtained the Chaos True Body technique must not be known to the system. This seemed to come from his subconscious, and Zhao Yu did it naturally. Please host to complete the first phase of the main mission as soon as possible. The system gave a cold and erratic response, and then fell silent. Zhao Yu called several times but never got a response. He smiled, put away the summoning card, stood up and stretched. Wash up first. I have to prepare for the mission, otherwise. He remembered the systematic punishment he had received before, and the pain made him shudder. Thinking of the systematic punishment, Zhao Yu suddenly found that he was now full of energy. At this moment, all the sequelae left before disappeared, and he could only feel vaguely warm inside his body, as if infinite energy was surging. According to the urinary nature of the system, it will definitely not give me benefits for no reason. It seems that after time travel, this body must have changed something. With these thoughts in mind, Zhao Yu went to the bathroom. His face was still sticky. When he was punished by the system, he drooled all over his face and never had time to clean it up. Fortunately, there was no one around, otherwise, it would be a big shame. Although the house is small, it is clean and well equipped. Although the bathroom is only 1 or 2 square meters, there is still a mirror hanging in it. Looking in the mirror, Zhao Yu carefully looked at his current appearance. He is exactly the same as the one on the system light screen. He is tall and thin, probably not more than 1.85 meters tall. His eyes are slightly blue, his nose is high and his face is angular. He is really a handsome mixed-race guy. He touched his chin and was very satisfied with his current body. If he had had such a figure before time travel, even if he was just a wage earner, he would have found his partner long ago and would not have been wasted until he was 30 years old. There are a lot of beauties in this world. Although the mission is urgent and the black-hearted system is forcing you to panic, you can't stop your physiological needs in your spare time, right? He chuckled, rinsed his mouth and face, and finished it in a few minutes. I put on my clothes and strolled out of the rental house. Brooklyn is the most populous borough in New York. This is not a civilian area, but it is not a wealthy area either. Most of the people gathered here are from the middle and lower classes. Although the original owner of Zhao Yu's body was just an orphan, he was still somewhat motivated. He came out of the orphanage and did not follow the bad example. Although the job of a courier deliveryman is not the best job, it at least allows him to gain a foothold in Brooklyn without having to live in a precarious life in the chaotic slums. Zhao Yu came out of the rented house, facing the rising sun, and headed straight to the company. He wants to resign. Had to resign. In fact, if there was no system and no task forcing him, he would never quit such a relatively stable job. But the system task is right in front of us. It takes 3 months to establish a sect. It's so urgent. How can we still have time to work? Not to mention the lack of time, the harvest from work alone cannot support the expenses of establishing a sect. If you want to establish a sect, you must have a stronghold, right? In novels and myths, the sects of the gods are all famous mountains and rivers, with mountain gates tens of thousands of miles around. Compared with the gods, Zhao Yu, although he is just a firefly, can't set up the mountain gate in a rented house, right? That's too unrewarding. After all, he is a time traveler and still has a system, although the system is too dark. Not to mention the famous mountains and rivers, you have to be satisfied with the beautiful scenery, right? He has already thought about the target, the farm. He planned to build a farm and build a mountain gate in a place with beautiful mountains and clear waters. Although for a traveler whose ultimate goal is 0 it is still frustrating to build a mountain gate on the farm, but the conditions do not allow it. It is said that even buying a small farm is almost impossible for Zhao Yu. He has no money. Of course, Zhao Yu can go to the mountains and countryside and rule the land as king. This is not impossible. As long as he goes far away, such as crossing the United States, going to the west, and setting up a mountain gate deep in the Rocky Mountains, no one will bother him. But you always have to keep in touch with the actual situation, right? He is not a fairy yet, and he does not have the ability to move thousands of miles at a time. Hiding in a mountain nook with inconvenient access and going back and forth for 10.5 months, how can we recruit disciples? After all, he has no strength now. Although there is a summoning tablet, it is a life-saving thing. It must not be used unless it is a last resort. How can it be used on the road? It's gone when you use it up. More importantly, Zhao Yu already understands the system. As a hardcore reader who especially likes to read novels, just by looking at the name of the system, you can roughly understand the core of the system: seizing luck, seizing luck. Where is the luck? On the protagonist. On to the big event. Who is the protagonist of the Marvel world? Superhero. Super badass. Are superheroes and supervillains in the mountains? In a big city. Where did the big event happen? It's basically not in the middle of nowhere, right? Due to various factors, his mountain gate must be established near a big city. New York is a place where superheroes gather. Many big things will happen here. If you want to win luck, how can you stay away? The resignation went very smoothly. No one is indispensable in this world, especially ordinary people. Although the original Owen worked here for a year or two, no one would miss an orphan who was withdrawn by nature. After resigning, settling his salary, and coming out of the express company, Zhao Yu went straight to the newsstand. I used the few $100s of my salary to buy all the newspapers available from the newsstand within a week, weighing dozens of kilograms in a big pile, and took them back to the rental house. For the next half day, Zhao Yu was reading newspapers and didn't even have the heart to eat lunch. In the evening, after flipping through the newspapers, I turned on the old second-hand computer again and started browsing on major portals. When it was getting dark, Zhao Yu finally turned off the computer while rubbing his forehead. From newspapers and computers, he sorted out some useful information. Mainly just information about superheroes. From online media and newspapers, only 2 heroes were found who were roughly active in New York. One is the Punisher and the other is Daredevil. The abilities of these 2 people are actually not qualitatively different from ordinary people. As for Spider-Man, there is no sign yet. Zhao Yu estimates that the kid has not yet become Spider-Man. And Iron Man is still the playboy of Stark Industries. He gets the most coverage, but it's mostly gossip. Tony Stark, like Peter Parker, is not yet a superhero. Rubbing his eyebrows, Zhao Yu lay quietly on the bed, pondering in his heart. There is only vague news about the Punisher and Daredevil in the news. These 2 are old gangsters, and compared to powerful heroes, their abilities are low, not even comparable to Spider-Man, and they are of little value. But since Daredevil has come forward, so his opponents Kingpin, Bullseye, and Japan's Hand should also be lurking in the dark. And Spider-Man and Iron Man haven't appeared yet, but it's 2002 now, so it should be soon. It's better not to show up. It's convenient for me. His thoughts passed over these current or future superheroes, and then thought of another side news: mutants are also interspersed. Think about it, although before time travel, due to copyright issues, mutants and superheroes were separated, but actually still able to be together. For me, mutants are very valuable. That kind of innate ability may be related to certain cultivation physiques and needs to be carefully observed. Moreover, these people also have their own luck, and they can use their hands and feet. But, he sighed slightly, the most important thing now is Tateyama Gate, money. He opened his eyes and his eyes fell on a newspaper. It was a man with a mustache and an arrogant look. It's you. As a super rich man and a super genius, Tony Stark's living environment is too advantageous. In the country of the United States, even though the world has changed, it is still the world of capital. Those who are rich and capable are naturally sought after. He has hot topics that will never be reported, he has money in his wallet that will never be used up, and there are always countless women flocking to him like moths to a flame. He can be arrogant to anyone, look down on all bumpkins, be willful and unreasonable, but few people can do anything to him. For Tony Stark, apart from hanging out with women and attending various parties, his greatest pleasure is the laboratory. As for Stark Industries, with 2 Dynasty veterans Obadiah Stane and assistant Pepper Potts here, he doesn't need to worry about anything. He is only responsible for coming up with new products, and he can get enough warm eyes and praise. He is a born protagonist, a character of long Aocean level. Potts, what about the actual test results of the missile? What did the military say? They must be very satisfied, right? On the top floor of Stark Tower, Tony and Pepper walked out of the elevator, one behind the other. Tony asked casually, and Pepper followed him with a folder in her arms. Well, we all know that you, Tony Stark, are the world's greatest genius. What's the military dissatisfied with his masterpiece? Pepper was already used to Tony's confidence, or arrogance. That's right, Tony took this sentence as a compliment without hesitation. But I don't believe they won't come up with some incredible ideas. Maybe they are going to let me build a missile that can blow up Jupiter in one fell swoop, and then dominate the world. Pepper shrugged. The fully automatic metal door automatically clocked in when Tony approached. Tony took off his coat and walked in while saying, "Jarvis, let's continue the last experiment." "Sorry sir, I think you must meet a guest before you can continue the experiment." "Okay." Tony slowly put down his coat and walked to the wine cabinet as if nothing had happened. "Pepper, please go out first. I may have a boxing match with a strange uninvited guest." As he spoke, he took a bottle of high-end red wine worth tens of thousands of dollars from the wine cabinet, poured a glass, and gestured to a weird guy wearing a green robe sitting on the sofa not far away. "Hey, man, do you want a drink? Although I don't know how you got through the heavy security to get to me, but as the host, I must welcome you, of course, provided you can give me an explanation. Pepper also saw the figure wearing a blue robe. This figure gives people a very strange feeling, as if it is there but not there at the same time. It seems far away but close at hand. She looked at Tony, and from Tony's eyes, she got the message of, stand still for now, and then she quietly withdrew. Tony's expression remained unchanged. Although he felt a little uneasy, he relied on someone to rely on. He believed that no one in the world could do anything to him for no reason. Tony Stark, the figure wearing a green robe, raised his head, revealing Zhao Yu's face. Yes, buddy, I am Tony Stark, the world's greatest genius and richest man. You were right. He swung the glass. I just told you, do you want a drink? Zhao Yu waved his hand. Your inferior drinks are of no benefit. Tony's expression froze, and then he shouted, what did you say? Bad wine. Are you despising me? Ha ha. He laughed weirdly. No one has ever despised me, except you. Zhao Yu looked at him indifferently, with a flash of light in his eyes, which made Tony feel as if he had no clothes on. He shouted, hey, man, don't look at me like this, okay? I'm not a gar, okay? Quote. The light in Zhao Yu's eyes dissipated, the corners of his mouth turned up slightly, and he replied, me neither. So, buddy. Tony sat on the sofa opposite Zhao Yu, with a coffee table between them. Can you explain to me now? Why not? Zhao Yu smiled calmly. I want a sum of money, and this money is best obtained from you. This is the reason why I came here today. Aha, Tony was stunned, and then a look of ridicule appeared on his face. Yes, I am very rich, if I take out all the money in the bank, it will be another Stark Tower. But man, I have never seen anyone like you. I want to ask, how thick is your face? It is really strange that there are people in this world who are thicker than me. Zhao Yu did not feel dissatisfied. He flicked his loose sleeves and said to himself, I say you are the most suitable for two reasons. First, you are very rich. But in fact, many rich people have the money I need. I can afford it. Secondly, I plan to accept you as my apprentice because you are very smart. This is the most important reason. Haha, are you giving alms? Tony opened his arms and said in disbelief, apprentice. Student, who am I? Tony Stark. Man, are you sure there is nothing wrong with your mind? So, you refused. Zhao Yu slowly stood up and stood with his hands behind his back. Of course, no one can expect to be nice to an uninvited guest. Tony relaxed his shoulders. Zhao Yu looked at him with a hint of sadness in his expression. I don't want to use force, but I can't waste it. He slowly stretched out his hand, and a ray of fluorescence shone on his fingertips. Tony fell backward suddenly, rolled over from the sofa, and hid behind the sofa. Just as he was about to scream, a ray of fluorescent light flew out, ignoring any obstacles and any human reaction, and shot into Tony's forehead. His expression froze, and then he yelled, what did you do to me, fool? Zhao Yu showed a smile. This is a spell that can also be made into a magic weapon. It is called the Tightening Curse. This spell directly acts on your soul and imposes punishment on the soul by chanting the spell. There once was a man who was born to be lawless. A monkey, he went to heaven and stirred up the three realms. The golden immortal even gave way when he saw him, but he was finally tamed by the tight curse. As he spoke, Zhao Yu looked at Tony with a smile. I want to know what is the difference between the world's #1 genius and that monkey. Monkey, you compare me to a monkey? Tony couldn't believe it. I can't believe that someone in this world compares me, Tony Stark, to a monkey. How ridiculous this is. He took a deep breath, softened his tone, and said seriously, man, you are committing a crime, you know. If you don't want the police to come to your door, you should lift this spell of yours for me. Although Tony is used to being arrogant and has never been threatened, he has deeply felt a kind of imprisonment from the depths of his soul. He is afraid. Zhao Yu still smiled lightly, standing with his hands behind his back, his big sleeves hanging down, his clothes fluttering, and his fairy spirit. People are always self-centered. You say you are the world's #1 genius, but in fact you are just an ant in front of that monkey. You don't know how strong his soul is, but why he is still tamed by the tight curse. Although the spell I cast on you cannot be compared with the one cast by the Tathagata himself, but absolutely no one among the immortals can understand it. And I suspect that in this world, people with the power of immortals may not have that ability. Zhao Yu said leisurely. So, for you, this is unsolvable. Unless you are willing to lose your soul. Otherwise, even if you were reincarnated and reborn, this spell imprinted in your soul will always follow you, never leaving, abandoned. I should let you experience the fun of this spell first. Zhao Yu said, smiled, the corners of his lips moved slightly, and some indescribable spells popped out from the gap between his lips, turning into an invisible force. It triggered the spell that was imprinted deep in Tony's soul. Ah! Tony's expression tightened, and huge pain and depression erupted from the depths of his soul. He hugged his head, rolling on the ground and roaring. Sir, Jarvis, the artificial intelligence, was fretting aside. It couldn't communicate with the outside world at all, and it couldn't even call the police. On the table next to it, there was a faintly glowing ball of light, imprisoned by twisted runes. When Tony entered here, Zhao Yu activated a chance to summon the holy card, appeared here, and imprisoned Jarvis, a false spirituality that was far inferior to even the weapon spirit. Seeing the painful veins exposed, the world's #1 genius who was almost in ecstasy, Zhao Yu said calmly, the tightening curse has multiple effects, the first one is pain. This is the effect of a certain great master according to the 18th level of hell. The spell of creation. He can let you experience 18 different kinds of pleasure. Tony, tell me, are you willing to experience it? No. Ah. He pinched his forehead with one hand, his eyes protruded, his gums bitten and bleed, the muscles on his face twitched unconsciously, and his whole body twitched. He stretched out his other hand with difficulty. One hand. Stop. I promised. Zhao Yu smiled slightly. Some people are too arrogant and self-centered, but in fact, this world will not collapse without anyone, and the earth will still rotate. To use an old saying from that place across the Pacific Ocean, you are called, you can happily become the founding disciple of this deity even if you don't have to drink wine as a penalty, but now you see. Stop talking. Tony grabbed the ground with his head, causing blood to come out of his forehead. Even a character like a monkey would feel like dying once Elder Tang recited a curse, let alone a mortal like Tony. Zhao Yu saw that it was almost done. If he continued, Tony was afraid that he would commit suicide, so he moved the corners of his lips slightly. The endless pain finally faded away like a tide. Tony's whole body went limp in an instant, and he was panting heavily, as if he was going to die at any moment. His eyes were wide open, his eyeballs were bloodshot, his face was covered in sweat, and there was no strength left in his body. Looking at him like this, Zhao Yu had to wonder, is the systematic punishment a tight curse? It was estimated that more than 10 minutes had passed since the beginning, and half of the time limit had passed. The remaining half of the time was still enough. Zhao Yu felt that it was still enough, so he planned to say a few more words to Tony. Let's bring up the old words again. I still mean the same thing. You, Tony, are a talent. There are not many people on this planet who can compare with you in some aspects. I am optimistic about you. Now let me ask you again, are you willing to be my first disciple? Can I still say no? Tony moved his body with difficulty and leaned his head on the back of the sofa, with a tired and mocking look on his face. Although I don't dare, yes, it's the first time I said I don't dare. I dare to say, I have experienced the greatest pain in the world. They say how painful it is for a woman to give birth and how painful it is to hit her balls, but I believe that I am the first. Haha, I am still the first. Zhao Yu could see a hint of vague resentment in Tony's eyes. But he didn't care and said with a smile, very good. Then, from now on, Tony Stark, you will be my first disciple. If the master has something to do, the disciple will do his duty. My good disciple, I will be the master now. Tateyamamon, but there is no place, it's time for you to make a contribution. Mountain Gate. Tony finally regained some strength. Just like your Stark Industries has the headquarters of Stark Tower, my Mountain Gate also has the same meaning. However, the Mountain Gate of Shishi needs beautiful mountains and clear waters, not a steel jungle, but it cannot be too far away from the city. Good apprentice son, I hope to see a farm or pasture in the suburbs of New York within 3 days. The area does not need to be too large for the time being, just within 100 acres. Just for 100 acres of pasture or farm. Tony gestured with his fingertips, showing an expression of disbelief. Then you gave me a witchcraft. No, 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 that's not witchcraft. Remember, it's magic, a tight spell. As for the mountain gate, it's second best. There are not even 100,000 but 80,000 people in New York who can provide such small farms and pastures. The teacher said, however, what I value most is you. I should be honored, right? Of course, if you follow me as a teacher, you will be much stronger than you are now. You will know in the future. Then I'll wait and see. Tony sneered and curled his lips. That's all, you won't believe what I tell you. You will know it when you experience it yourself. That's it for today. Good disciple, have a good rest. I will come back to you tomorrow. An interesting smile flashed in Zhao Yu's eyes. Turned around without any sign, just like a virtual projection, it disappeared immediately without any trace. Seeing that the man who had been smiling lightly but acting like a devil was finally gone, Tony slowly got up from the sofa and threw himself into the sofa. He was stunned for a long time, and all kinds of panic and fear flowed through his heart one by one. This was a feeling he had never experienced before. He covered his forehead, his face became fierce, and he cursed in a low voice, how could I encounter such a devil? Tighten the curse, soul. What should I do? Even if it is poison, or even various known or even unknown technological means, he is confident that he can eliminate them, but this kind of mysterious thing is the only thing that, as the world's #1 genius, he has not touched upon. Especially when it comes to the so-called soul, there is no way to start. His smart brain was working rapidly, and suddenly his eyes lit up. Xavier School for the Gifted. Regardless of his exhausted body, he stood up abruptly. Jarvis, inform my driver that I want to use him, and I must go to Xavier School for the Gifted immediately. I'm sorry, Mr. Stark, came the voice of smart butler Jarvis, your master used some unscientific method to fix your butler to the table. I can't contact the outside world, I'm sorry. Tony spread his hands and was almost speechless. He cursed a few times and had no choice but to take his coat and stagger out the door with barely moving steps. Every step he took made his whole body tremble. Speaking of it, the willpower of the world's #1 genius was actually pretty good. Tony. Pepper was right outside the door. When the door opened, Tony couldn't stand and threw himself out, almost losing his grip. Who is that? Oh my God, what did he do to you? Let's call the police, Tony. Tony shook his head and said reluctantly, my dear, help me go downstairs and contact my driver. I'm going to Xavier School for Gifted and Talented. For a person of Tony's level, there are not many secrets in this world that he doesn't know. Although Tony doesn't pay much attention to mutants, a group that has been in newspapers many times, he still knows a lot about it. This is something that an upper-class person in society must pay attention to, even if it has nothing to do with him. Especially the person from Xavier School, who is known as one of the strongest people in the world and who is good at psychic power, Professor Charles. In Tony's opinion, if there was anyone in the world who could help him, the only one he knew was Charles Xavier. That bald guy like Obadi. Although he was very reluctant to see this person, no one would feel comfortable facing a dangerous person who could know every bit of what you were thinking, and could even make you incapacitated by just one glance. But the fact was that he had to turn to Charles, and there was no other way. This is a huge blow to a proud genius. In a high-end coffee shop not far away from Stark Tower, sitting on a seat near the window, a figure in green robe quietly looked through the glass, watching a cool sports car passing by on the street in front of him. The time for the first use of the Summoning Saint card has not yet come, and the sacred power of the person possessed by the summoning is still surging and reverberating in Zhao Yu's body. Even if it is only 1 part in a billion, it still gives Zhao Yu the ability to temporarily destroy the entire state of New York with one strike. Everything within a radius of thousands of miles, the lines of space, the flow of energy, even the crawling ants and flying mosquitoes, cannot escape his senses. At this moment, he seemed to be incarnate in thousands of ways, omnipotent. Everything Tony did and said after he left fell into his heart. Even at this moment, Zhao Yu knew where all the superheroes in the United States were and what they were doing. But that's not important, there are only a few minutes left before this power will leave him. He just needs to remember where the next target is, and other things are not considered for the time being. As for Tony going to Professor Charles to resolve the crisis, he didn't take it to heart. Although the mutant professor did have profound attainments in psychic power, he was almost unparalleled on this earth. But Zhao Yu didn't believe that he could do anything to tighten the curse. The curse acts directly on Tony's soul. Maybe Charles can find the curse, but there is absolutely nothing he can do. He doesn't understand the immortal system, this is one of them. Second, there is an essential difference between the power of the soul and the mind. Thirdly, the person who cast the tightening spell on Tony was the sacred summoned by the holy summoning card. Such a being, although after possessing Zhao Yu, could only use 1/1000th of the power, its control over power was extremely subtle. The place, its mystery, is unimaginable. Not even a powerful monkey can do anything about it, let alone Professor Charles. To put it bluntly, even if the spell of the tight band was placed in front of Charles, he could only read it from the heavenly book and be confused. Zhao Yu believed that Tony would eventually surrender obediently. The time limit finally arrived, and Zhao Yu's whole person suddenly changed. From the previous sacred mode with towering blue robes and lingering immortal energy, he regressed into his original mortal body. Only then did Zhao Yu's figure really appear in the coffee shop. Before, he and the coffee shop were not at the same latitude at all. This sudden appearance did not attract anyone's attention. Zhao Yushi stood up and walked out of the coffee shop. In the rental house, Zhao Yu chuckled. The legendary super rich man, playboy, and the world's #1 genius, haha, this is such a scam. He smiled happily. In fact, when Zhao Yu decided to use the precious holy summoning card, he was already determined to control Tony. Regardless of whether Tony agreed at the beginning or not. This is inevitable. Tony is a dangerous person. Despite his usual cheerfulness, in fact, he has huge energy on this planet. If it is not controlled, Zhao Yu believes that Tony will double the losses he suffered and return it to Zhao Yu afterwards. Of course Zhao Yu is not afraid of the divine possessor, but the divine possession has a time limit. Once he exits the possessed state, Zhao Yu is now not much stronger than ordinary people. Any hidden dangers must be eliminated. Summoning the divine possession this time is not only a rare experience for Zhao Yu. In the mortal state, he has experienced in advance at least the basic abilities of the realm of returning to the void, powerful magic power, the differentiation of thousands of souls, and the ability to step into the void, ability to travel through basic latitudes, etc. There was even a hint of powerful Taoism that he captured. And in the process, he had a sudden idea. While controlling Tony, he distractedly used the power of the possessing power to gain a preliminary and in-depth understanding of all the contents of the first transformation of the true form of chaos. With a powerful vision, it is naturally easy to understand the secret of the first transformation of the true form of chaos. This is the biggest gain. Although the sacred projection has left, the understanding of the secret of the first transformation of the true form of chaos remains in Zhao Yu's heart. Chaos True Body has mastered the 9-level method of 9-level refining in one turn, and can practice it at any time without any bottlenecks. This kind of surprise made Zhao Yu tremble with excitement. If it weren't for the subconscious warning in his heart, he would probably call out the system and dazzle him. Take a good look at the system's aggrieved reaction. At the same time, Zhao Yu was also slightly annoyed. He had known that he should have redeemed a combat skill first, even the worst one. Now, except that his physical fitness is twice that of ordinary people, he has no other means and still lacks the basic ability to protect himself. If you have exchanged a combat skill before, in the state of divine possession, you will be able to understand it clearly in the blink of an eye, and quickly practice it to the state of returning to nature. Even the true form of chaos is completely understood, and it's just a low-level combat skill, but it's not easy to capture it. This also allowed Zhao Yu to truly appreciate another powerful function of the Summoning Saint card, not only to save life, but also to help with cultivation. He has made up his mind that he will never use the remaining 2 times unless absolutely necessary. Even if he does use them, he must find the right time, for example, if he encounters a bottleneck in his practice and cannot break through. This is its true usage. Just when Zhao Yu was enjoying himself, Tony finally arrived at Xavier School for Gifted Talents. This school is just outside New York. Professor Charles had already known about Tony's arrival and ordered Cyclops Scott to greet him outside the door. Charles is a very contradictory person. He claims to have sacrificed everything for the mutants, but in fact, what he has done has deviated from the mutant camp. He is more considerate of humanity. But he still thought he was absolutely right. The other person opposite him, Magneto King Eric, is at the other extreme. One advocates compromise and compromise again and again, while the other persists in attacking and attacking again. If the two could be combined into one, and a middle number was chosen, perhaps the situation of the mutants would be much better than it is now. Charles is confused about Tony's purpose. He knows very well that he is hated by many people. No one wants all their secrets to be exposed to the eyes of others. Therefore, he rarely goes out. If not necessary, he would rather stay in this remote school for the rest of his life. He believed that others would not want to see him if it was not necessary. And for the sake of his so-called belief, he will hardly use his ability to spy on anyone else, although it is easy for him. Therefore, he didn't know Tony's purpose, he didn't rush to check Tony's memory. Even Professor Charles didn't want to offend Tony. Soon, Scott, who was wearing sunglasses, led Tony, who was energetic but looked tired, in. "Hey man," Tony said as he walked. He still couldn't stop talking. "No one said you are very cool. Your sunglasses are very beautiful, really." Scott had an impatient look on his face. He always maintained a kind of vigilance and disgust towards people like Tony, rich men or upper-class figures. The situation of mutants, in his opinion, it was these people who hindered the realization of the professor's dream. "Professor, we're here," he said, looked at Tony who was being supported with contempt, ignored him, turned around and walked out. "Sorry," a hint of apology appeared on Charles's vicissitudes of face. "Scott may not be in a good mood these days." No need." Tony was helped by the bodyguard to sit down, with a generous look on his face. "I know, people, there are always a few days every month." Charles was dumbfounded. He had known that Tony, a man of great influence, had always been unreasonable and unforgiving, with a mouth as sharp as a knife, and now he finally realized it. "Okay, Mr. Stark, I want to know why you're here." He didn't intend to settle down with Tony. Tony looked around and asked the bodyguard to go out. There were only 2 people left in the room. He organized his words and stretched out his hand to gesture. "I don't know how to talk about it. Just now, a very strange stranger came to my office and cast a curse or witchcraft on me. That the devil calls it a curse, and God knows what an unfortunate name it is." He said bitterly. "That person keeps saying that he wants to be my master, God, Professor Charles, master. Do you think there are such thick-skinned people in this world?" Charles nodded in understanding. "It's natural to be wary of strangers." "Correct." Tony seemed to have found a confidant and complained endlessly, "But when the devil saw that I was unwilling, he performed witchcraft on me. I thought he was a liar, but, Professor, you can tell by looking at me now." He pointed to his nose. Pain from the depths of my soul. I can clearly feel it now. In a corner of me, I am bound and suppressed by something." The devil said, "This is a kind of thing that directly affects the soul. By the way, fairy magic." He said it as fairy magic. "God, what the hell?" He complained repeatedly. "You may not know that he has only 2 purposes for finding me. In his words, there are only 2 reasons. One is to ask me to provide him with a farm or pasture of no more than 100 acres, and it needs to be around New York. The second is to ask me to provide him with a farm or pasture of no more than 100 acres. This person actually values me. I can't bear it. I have to suffer like this just for 100 acres of land, and it will continue forever, controlled by him. Professor, I thought of you. If there is someone in this world, help me, that person is only you. Of course, Professor, I won't let your efforts go in vain." Tony promised. "Maybe I can say a few words for you regarding the Mutant Act." The professor frowned slightly, with a very conspicuous look on his face against his shiny head. "Using power that is different from ordinary people to control others is a bad behavior that violates the bottom line of morality and disregards free thought. It is not advisable. However, I may not know the person Mr. Stark is talking about. Is there someone who controls the soul on this planet?" He looked up at Tony. "If Mr. Stark doesn't mind, I'd like to take a look first." "Of course." Tony shrugged, pretending to be relaxed. "Otherwise, what would I be doing here?" The professor smiled, his eyes flashed, and Tony suddenly became confused. The expression on Professor Charles's face was relaxed at first, then gradually became serious, and finally he started to sweat on his smooth forehead. His face also turned red. His skinny hands squeezed tightly, and the blood vessels were exposed, making it look very difficult. I don't know how long it took, but Charles groaned, 2 streams of blood spurted out from his nostrils, and then he suddenly opened his eyes. At the same time, Tony shuddered and woke up. Seeing Charles's embarrassment, he couldn't help but open his mouth slightly, and his heart sank. Charles wiped the blood outside his nostrils, his eyes showing extreme fatigue, and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry, Mr. Stark, I tried my best." Tony's face suddenly turned pale. Seeing Tony staggering away with the help of bodyguards, Professor Charles closed his eyes tiredly. "Professor, what's wrong?" Chin, Aurora, Scott, Hank and others surrounded him, looking at the professor with extremely concerned eyes. Charles waved his hand gently. That playboy was put under a curse deep in his soul and controlled. "He came to me, but I can't do anything." "Impossible," Scott shouted. "Professor, who has put a curse on the soul that you can't remove?" "It's not the soul." The professor waved his hand. "It's the soul. I can see the soul, but the curse is too profound and I can't decipher it. When I tried my best to decipher it, I suffered severe psychic backlash." As he spoke, he sighed. "An extremely dangerous and unscrupulous person has appeared in this world again. He is proficient in the power of the soul, and I can't find him. Why is the fate of human beings always so troubled?" After saying that, he turned the wheelchair and left slowly. A group of people looked at his back and couldn't help but look at each other. Zhao Yu practiced peacefully all night. He believed in the curse and in divine power, so he had no worries. This night, he officially stepped into the threshold of cultivation. Although it was his first time, it was extremely familiar. The things left behind by the divine projection benefited him immensely. The first turn of Chaos True Body has 9 levels of refining techniques. In addition, there is also a general outline. This general outline is not a text or a catalog, but a Taoist rhyme. When realizing this Taoist rhyme, the body will involuntarily make many movements that are difficult for ordinary people to do. Through the movements guided by this Taoist rhyme, the physical body is tempered from the inside to the outside, and the bone marrow, blood, internal organs, muscles, bones, etc. There is no place where the skin, flesh, or even the brain will fall. This is an all-round exercise. This is also the first step of refining the true form of chaos. Only after being infected and tempered by the general outline of Tao Yun and laying a solid foundation can we truly start to practice the 9-level refining method. Throughout the night, Zhao Yu was immersed in the general outline of Taoism. The small rented house became a place for him to hone his physical foundation. In the morning, after the 9th realization, he finally opened his eyes. At this time, he stood in the middle of the room in a posture of withdrawing his power. He didn't find it strange, although last night, at first, he was in bed. Summoning the system light curtain, his eyes stayed on the basic attributes. Constitution strength, 5. Soul strength, 9. In just one night, his body had undergone earth-shaking changes. Physical strength more than doubled from 2 to 5. Especially soul strength, the legacy of divine possession. In the state of divine possession, he understood the mystery of the first 9 refinements of the real body of chaos. This is equivalent to enlightenment. It is reasonable for the soul strength to increase like this. And Zhao Yu can clearly feel that this growth has not stopped. Both the physical strength and the soul strength are slowly increasing. This has nothing to do with the Chaos True Body method, nor does it have anything to do with divine possession. This is the instinct of the physical constitution itself. He couldn't easily realize it before, but after stepping into the door of cultivation, he can feel the specialness of his physique. Maybe it only eats and sleeps, just like the legendary Western big-bellied lizard dragon, which slept for hundreds of years and became invincible. Tony didn't expect that not even Professor Charles could do anything about what happened to him. How desperate would this be? He couldn't think of anyone else in the world who could help him except Charles. After leaving the gifted school, he didn't say a word on the way back. I even hung up the phone calls of several beauties. At this point, it was like the strongest rope was tied around his neck, allowing others to manipulate him. This was the greatest pain for Tony. Ordinary people have been pushed around their entire lives, but they get used to it. And people like Tony have been different from ordinary people since birth. It was like an angel who once flew freely in the sky was suddenly chained and turned into a pet dog. He couldn't accept the huge contrast. The more status a person has and the more arrogant he is, the less he can tolerate being controlled. Sir, we've arrived at Stark Tower. Ahead, the driver spoke up. Tony suddenly woke up, looked through the car window at the building that had always made him proud, and suddenly felt a sense of timidity. Taking a breath and cheering up, he opened the car door and walked out slowly. Although several hours had passed, he still felt exhausted. But he had to cheer up. He didn't want his state to affect others, let alone let others see his embarrassment. Who is he? The world's #1 genius and super rich man, Tony Stark. Pepper waited anxiously in the lobby on the ground floor of the building, sometimes sitting down, sometimes standing up and walking around, sometimes looking at the watch on his wrist. Until I saw Tony walk in and saw that he was in good spirits, I couldn't help but feel relieved. There was no talking all the way until we reached the top. These two people were the only ones left in the room. Although Pepper is just Tony's assistant, and although Tony is uninhibited and often hangs out among flowers, there is a different kind of relationship between the two. They are very close. Mr. Stark, can you tell me what happened? Pepper still doesn't know what happened to Tony. Call me Tony, Tony emphasized, pouring himself a glass of red wine out of habit, and then personally made a cup of the best coffee for Pepper. Who am I? He said proudly. Is there anything in this world that is hard to get me? So, he spread his hands. Everything is okay. Really? Pepper held the coffee cup and looked at Tony suspiciously. I hope you won't lie to me. Of course, as your assistant, I have an obligation to care about you. Tony laughed, and when Pepper wasn't prepared, he kissed Pepper secretly, just on the cheek. Pepper took a step back, with a look of disgust on her face. Mr. Stark, please respect yourself. I am not one of those Victoria's Secret models, nor am I a female reporter from a certain newspaper. Okay, Tony quickly raised his hands and surrender. We won't talk about this. He made up his mind not to worry Pepper, so he changed the subject after a few moments. But he said, Dear Pepper, there is something you can help me handle. Aha, Pepper showed a serious expression. Pepper has always been like this when something goes wrong. She is a very capable woman, and everything related to Tony would definitely be a mess without Pepper. I have a friend, Tony considered. Although he was cursing secretly in his heart, his expression remained unchanged. He needs a pasture or farm, less than 100 acres, with a good environment, and it must be around New York. He has just arrived in New York. Didn't know much about New York, so he left this matter to me. When Pepper heard this, he nodded naturally. I'll do it right away. It's just a small thing. A 100-acre high-end farm, even in New York, is worth no more than $5 million. To Pepper, this was just a small thing. Okay, Tony said, as soon as possible. He will come to me tomorrow. When Tony saw Zhao Yu again, his expression and language remained unchanged. But Zhao Yu could clearly feel the huge gap. Anger, and a hint of fear. Let anyone be controlled and become a marionette for no reason. Zhao Yu would also have the same emotion. He didn't feel dissatisfied. When Pepper brought him up, he didn't recognize Zhao Yu as the man yesterday. Firstly, the clothes are different, and secondly, the temperament is completely different. The key is that Pepper only had one face-to-face meeting with the divinely possessed Zhao Yu yesterday, and it didn't even last a minute. You are beautiful, ma'am, thank you for bringing me up. Thanks. After thanking Pepper, Zhao Yu walked into this familiar room full of science fiction atmosphere. As an assistant, Pepper brought Zhao Yu up and left naturally, leaving only Zhao Yu and Tony. I'm ready for what you want. Tony didn't give Zhao Yu a good look. The farm is 100 acres, just on the outskirts of Queens, next to the Hudson River. The scenery is very beautiful. Maybe you can be buried there. Quote. Zhao Yu didn't care about Tony's tone. He smiled and sat down on his own. Good disciple, I am a guest at your place. As a host, is this how you treat me? He wanted to laugh in his heart. The guy in front of me, who had always been arrogant, unruly, conceited, and self-centered, was actually eaten to death by him. There was nothing he could do except verbal sarcasm. Although it was with the help of divine ability, it was enough to make Zhao Yu feel refreshed. Tony glared at Zhao Yu fiercely, groaned, poured a full glass of pure water for Zhao Yu, and knocked it in front of Zhao Yu, causing water to splash. Regarding this childish behavior, Zhao Yu just found it funny. Letting the water splash on him, Shirin picked up the cup and took a sip. not bad, it quenches his thirst very much. Tony only felt a punch hitting the cotton, and his heart tightened uncomfortably. He took a breath, suppressed the urge to punch him, looked serious, and said seriously, "Listen, man. I will give you everything you want, but you can't restrict my freedom. Call master." Zhao Yu looked at him quietly. Tony was speechless and choked. He was in so many dangers and so many embarrassments, it was really unspeakable. But under the intense gaze of Zhao Yu, he could only call out in a muffled voice, "Master." "Okay." Zhao Yu laughed and said, "This glass of water should be regarded as your apprenticeship." After saying that, he drank the glass of pure water in one gulp. "I won't tell you anything else in advance. You are the first disciple I accepted before I founded the sect. As the eldest disciple, you must have a deep understanding of my sect's teachings and code of conduct." He talked. "The name of our sect is Tai, and Tai is Tao. The source of the universe originates from Tai, which divides into heaven and earth, turns into yin and yang, and changes into the four seasons, the latitude of time and space, material energy, all living things, and everything. The rules all come from it." What a loud tone. Although Tony didn't quite understand the meaning of some sentences in Zhao Yu's sentence, after all, Zhao Yu translated and explained it according to Taoist terminology, he did understand the second half of the sentence. "I just feel like this devil, this cheap master in front of me is so awesome. This sect is a major sect that has cultivated immortality. When I entered the sect, I cultivated magical skills, understood magical powers, and participated in the avenue of the universe to obtain immortality and become immortals. This is one of them. I understand the secrets of reincarnation, participate in the secrets of immortality, and jump out of the sect. The three realms are not in the five elements, and attaining the golden immortality is the second. Transcendence of the universe, playing with the universe, moving yin and yang, harmonizing time and space, being indestructible for all eons, and attaining the Hunyuan, this is the third." He tried his best to imagine, and said, "When I came out as a teacher, I saw that this earth is vast and densely populated, and all the spirits are restless. There are many deceptions, unfaithfulness and filial piety, unkindness and unrighteousness, greed for pleasure and happiness in misfortunes, and many killings and strife. Therefore, I established a sect to teach and transform all living beings and to save all souls. Since you are my founding disciple, you should take this as your belief and help teach and transform living beings. Then your merits will descend from heaven and you will become an immortal and a god." Although Zhao Yu's deception was good, Tony didn't believe a word of it. Instead, he felt that this devil was too ambitious. In his opinion, the so-called enlightenment of living beings is probably like Jesus Christ, who used foolish thoughts to deceive the people in order to achieve the purpose of dark rule. Tony doesn't believe in God. Zhao Yu still didn't feel dissatisfied. Some people don't believe it even if their mouths and tongues bloom like lotuses. As the saying goes, hearing is false and seeing is belief. After Tony experienced the mysteries for himself, Zhao Yu believed that he would return to his heart. "The teachings of my sect are divided into internal and external. The internal one is transcendent and refined, only seeking for one's own body, and only realizing the great truth. The external one is to save all living beings, educate all spirits, make everyone like a dragon, and make humanity prosperous. When you enter our sect, you first need to teach from the outside to save all sentient beings and walk around in the world of mortals. After you understand your own body and resolve the cause and effect, you can then enter the inner sect and practice the immortal way diligently." Tony basically went in with one ear and out with the other. When he heard this, he suddenly asked, "What about after practicing the immortal way diligently?" He sneered, "I study technology to benefit the world. You educate all living beings, but you enslave them. Why should I play with you?" Zhao Yu ignored it and thought to himself, "There is a fish in the North Ming dynasty. Its name is Kun. Kun is so big that I don't know how many thousands of miles it has. If it turns into a bird, its name is Peng. The back of Peng doesn't know how many thousands of miles it has." Shu and Shuiju laughed and said, "I will rise and fly, grab the elm tree and stop, but the time will not come, and I will only control the ground. How can I go south for 90,000 miles? After reciting a verse of Xiaoyaoyu, in a mellow tone, Zhao Yu said with a smile, "You are like that, Xiaoyu Shuiju. You think you are a great person by fighting to fly, grabbing the elm and stopping, but you laugh at the person who spreads his wings. Kunpeng, who is 90,000 miles across the time and space of heaven and earth, thinks it is impossible. There is an old saying on the other side of the sea, which is called, the frog at the bottom of the well. You are such a person now. But since you worship me as your teacher, you will be able to jump out of the pond in the future, witness the broader sky. Tony was speechless. He felt funny in his heart, but he vaguely felt that this devil had a point. The universe is so big, and he is just a member of the earth. It is not wrong to say that he is a Xiao Shui Ju. It's just that I feel a little unhappy in my heart. He, Tony, who is known as the world's #1 genius, is actually compared to a bug or a bird. How is this a slap in the face? Chapter 11. You think your technology and your wisdom are everything. Then let me ask you, how powerful is the current technology of the Earth? How powerful is your Stark Industries? Breaking out of the planet. Journey to the Star Sea. But it's just staying on the mainland. It's just a trail on the planet. When I entered Samadhi, my soul returned to the void and observed various things in the universe. In the distant starry sky, there are technological civilizations countless times more powerful than the Earth, with a population of trillions, and space battleships like Crucian Carp crossing the river. But there are still a more powerful individual can destroy civilization and exterminate all living beings with a wave of his hand. In the eyes of those individuals, the Earth is just a speck of dust and is not taken into consideration. Now the calamity is rising, and there are constant battles in the universe. Although this Earth is located in a remote place, it is still in danger of destruction. If not, why would I go out of the mountain? You once asked me why I must find you. I never lie as a teacher, so I value you. I have a volume of Talisman Tao. If you cultivate it thoroughly, you will have great magic power and supernatural powers. In some aspects, and the so-called technology may have a miraculous effect of complementing each other. Because you are a genius in science and technology, I thought that there was some future in the talismans, so I valued you. Otherwise, wouldn't it be more convenient to randomly choose someone as a teacher? Quote. As for using a tight spell to control you, there are 2 reasons. First, I don't want to get into trouble, although I can solve it with a wave of my hand. Second, you have an unruly and conceited temperament. If I don't control you, how can I teach you the way? Quote. Tony listened to Zhao Yu's words, and his mind was filled with thoughts. Sometimes I felt that Zhao Yu was worrying too much, sometimes I felt that what he said was reasonable, and sometimes I felt that I was laughing and laughing. It turned out that he was too good and that was why he suffered the disaster. Seeing the change in Tony's expression, Zhao Yu secretly laughed in his heart. After all this deception, whether it was true or false or true, I told him everything that came to mind and what needed to be said. Even if you can't fool him immediately, you can still leave a little impression in his mind. When everything happens in the future and it is confirmed one by one, you can't help but think that Tony is not the real one. You must remember what my teacher told you today and don't spread it indiscriminately. Now let's take my teacher to the farm to have a look. He flicked his nails and stood up. Geniuses can also be monsters, with different personalities, but unruly is the nature. It can be arrogance or pride. In the car, Zhao Yu said calmly, as a mortal, your status and your wealth determine your comfort. But this is just an ordinary level. One day, you will be involved in a bigger whirlpool. Tony said nothing, and kept a disapproving smile on his face. When Zhao Yu saw this, he stopped talking. Soon, we arrived at the outskirts of Queens, next to the Hudson River. A small farm called Muscat. There is no doubt about Tony's ability to do things, or rather Pepper's ability to do things. This farm changed hands yesterday afternoon. When Tony brought Zhao Yu here, except for a small villa and the orchards and cash crops in the fields, there were no traces left by the previous owner. Zhao Yu took the silent Tony around the farm and felt very satisfied. The farm will be 100 acres, of which about 40 acres will be planted with grain crops, another 30 acres will be orchards, and the remaining 30 acres will be a small lake and forest area. The little villa is nestled among woods, a small lake in the Hudson River. Surrounded by mountains and rivers, the scenery is really good. After completing the circle, Zhao Yu nodded with satisfaction. Very good, it meets the requirements for the time being. He stood with his hands behind his back, his posture upright, and said to Tony calmly, Master has no requirements for a place to stay, this farm will just be like this. As for the workers, all are dismissed. Master, I don't want this farm for farming. Tony shrugged casually. Immediately, Zhao Yu walked into the villa with Tony. The villa was empty, with nothing. All furniture and such had been moved away by the original owner. Zhao Yu said, "Let's decorate this place today." Tony still shrugged. However, he glanced at Pepper, who was following him with a strange expression and never said a word. Pepper nodded, turned and walked out. Zhao Yu then turned around and stood face to face in front of Tony. Today we have the Shanman Station and disciples. It is the time to start the mountain and establish the sect. After Zhao Yu finished speaking, he closed his eyes slightly. In fact, without that lottery, it would have been extremely difficult for Zhao Yu to complete the task of establishing the sect within 3 months. Without the summoning saint card, he couldn't do this. Without the chaos true body technique, he is only slightly stronger than ordinary people. You can imagine how difficult it is to get a large amount of money to buy a piece of land and to recruit disciples through deception. But now, in just 3 days, the mission was accomplished. Originally, Zhao Yu did not plan to submit the task to the system immediately, he even planned to delay it until the end of the 3-month time limit. He wanted to see if the system would be aggrieved. But he changed his mind. The main reason is luck value. The demand for Junyun Lingbao and Dongtian Paradise is not high now, so they are temporarily dispensable. But the need for luck value is imminent. After accepting a disciple, he naturally had to fulfill his obligations, but Zhao Yu had no other method to teach except an incomplete version of Chaos True Body. And the true body of Chaos is the foundation of his life, how can he teach it easily? Therefore, exchange is imperative. However, the exchange method requires luck value. He still has 90 luck points, which can be exchanged for some mortal level cultivation methods, but Zhao Yu has high aspirations. The ultimate mission of this system is OAA. It's not enough if the ambition is not high. Secondly, ordinary methods will never fool Tony. Just like what Zhao Yu said to Tony before, he believed that if Tony was allowed to join the talisman movement and combined with his technology, there would be great prospects, so he planned to exchange Tony for a basic talisman training method first. The basic cultivation methods of Talisman Dao are not included in the basic talismans. The classic book, Basic Talismans, does not contain fundamental cultivation methods, only various drawing methods for basic talismans. The method of cultivation is fundamental. Its value far exceeds the 90 luck points that Zhao Yu currently possesses. Because in Famine District, you can't find it at all. That's why Zhao Yu decided to submit the task to the system in advance and get the rewarded 10,000 luck points first. As for seeing the system suffer, there will be opportunities in the future, not least this time. Main Mission 1. Founding a sect is completed. Mission rewards are distributed. This voice sounded in his mind, and Zhao Yu breathed a sigh of relief. He thought, search for the basic cultivation method of Fu Dao. Deduct 10 luck points. Do you want to search? Search. Zhao Yu's expression remained unchanged. It's only 10 o'clock, do you still think it's like before? I have 10,090 luck points in my hand, 10 points is nothing. Rich and willful. Immediately, in the light curtain that only Zhao Yu could see in front of him, Zhao Yu was dazzled by the large number of various talisman and Taoist methods in the method area. Zhao Yu pondered, these methods are good and bad, but they are all complete methods that directly point to the stage of refining qi and transforming into a god, starting from body building and foundation building to the 9th level of god transformation. Therefore, the value is quite low. The worst technique requires 1,000 luck points, and the best one requires 5,000. This made Zhao Yu frown quite a bit. He couldn't help but ask in his heart. At the beginning, the 3 supreme Dharma doors can be divided into small layers and small layers. Why are these complete Dharma doors that go directly to the 9th level of divine transformation? All interpretation rights belong to the system, and the host has no right to interfere. Zhao Yu's mouth twitched, and he guessed in his heart that this was the revenge of the fool system. I can't bear the injustice. He took a deep breath and considered it in his mind. Luck is very valuable, there is no doubt about this, just look at the name of the system and you will know it. Now he finally completed the task ahead of schedule after spending an opportunity to summon the holy card, and only received 10,000 luck points. It can be seen that the value of this luck value is very high. But to exchange Tony for a cultivation method, the worst one would have to pay 1/10 of the luck value in his pocket, let alone the best one, which made Zhou Yu particularly painful. Although he accepted Tony as his apprentice, Zhao Yu had no relationship with Tony as his time was short. Secondly, Tony himself agreed unwillingly and was subject to talent. Is it cost-effective to give him the best method? At this moment, the system voice sounded, complete the side mission, take on one apprentice. Take in a disciple and gather luck. For each apprentice, different rewards will be given according to their luck. Tony Stark, the future Iron Man, the comic book one of the most important superheroes in the world, he is favored by luck, and the host accepts him as a disciple, teaches him the great ways, binds his luck, and rewards him with a luck value of 500. Quote. Zhao Yu was surprised. He didn't expect this at all. Is there a reward for accepting a disciple? Rewards come only when luck dictates. Zhao Yu pondered for a moment, then thought about it, and said, then what if I take in an ordinary person, not a superhero, but after he acquires the secret and becomes powerful, he also participates in major events that affect the Marvel world? How to calculate it? Luck is born, but it flows. The system explained vaguely, and said, friendly reminder, if the host sect participates in events in the Marvel world, no matter how big or small, there will be cumulative rewards of luck points. The bigger the event, the greater the luck. The more in-depth the participation, the greater the role and the greater the influence, the stronger the sect's discipleship will be, and the sect's luck will increase. After each event, the system will reward the host's luck value based on the increase in the host sect's popularity. Zhao Yu was even more surprised. This is a long-term investment. In other words, if Tony goes to do heroic things, I will get income every time. Of course, after the joy, Zhao Yu had a change of heart. If he takes in an ordinary person, as long as he can participate in major events that affect the development of the world, he will gradually be favored by luck. If he participates in any event, Zhao Yu can still get luck points. Award. Thinking of this, he felt certain. In this world, although superheroes are the protagonists, ordinary people may not be able to do it either. Those superheroes each have distinct personalities, and it is difficult to recruit them all. Well, now there is one more choice. Of course, Zhao Yu also knows that the protagonist will definitely benefit the sect more and make faster profits than ordinary people. But no matter what, having one more choice is good. In this case, Zhao Yu's mind changed, and he gritted his teeth and said, the stronger the disciple, the better. System, exchange it for me for the Chenkin talisman to refine the Qi method. The Qi refining technique of the Chenkin talisman is now the most valuable method in the Dharma district and can only be exchanged for a full 5,000 luck points. Zhao Yu also fought hard. It hurts my heart to spend half of my property on someone who is unwilling to do so. As soon as the words came out of his mouth, Zhao Yu felt a little regret. But how could the system give him a chance to regret it? A ball of yin-yang light flew out, and there seemed to be endless lines intertwined in it, and there was a vague appearance of the prototype of the world. This is a glimpse of the highest secret of the Qi refining method of Chenkin talisman. The light ball flashed, and no one could see it. It entered from the center of Zhao Yu's eyebrows, and instantly turned into infinite talismans, showing the mystery one by one in his mind, including clouds, dragons, wind and tigers, earth, wind, water and fire, thunder and lightning, the mountains and rivers of the earth, the mysteries of the heaven and the earth, are all within it. Finally, it was collected into an extremely mysterious mother talisman, which was quietly suspended in Zhao Yu's sea of consciousness. When the mother talisman manifested, Zhao Yu seemed to have realized the mystery of the infinite avenue. All kinds of experiences and insights were like tides in the blue sea, surging and mighty, and sparks of wisdom and inspiration appeared one by one at this moment. After the mother talisman condensed and absorbed the mystery, this mysterious feeling suddenly faded away, leaving Zhao Yu feeling lost. He sighed slightly, glanced at Tony who was already confused and impatient, and said to the system in his heart, I know a little bit about this Chenkin talisman Qi refining method, but if I want to teach it to others, I can't explain it orally. The system has Is there any way? The wonder of the Great Road can be understood but cannot be expressed in words. In particular, Zhao Yu is only new to the secrets and is not familiar with them. If you had a clear understanding and perfect cultivation, you would be able to speak orally, but you don't have that ability now. As for directly giving this avenue inheritance light group to Tony, it is also impossible. How can the great teachings be taught lightly? Even complete concentration must be taught step by step. Zhao Yu already had a framework in mind for his plan for the sect. It's not like I read so many fairy tales and fantasy novels in the past. The structures of many of these sects can be used for reference. For example, there should be corresponding rules for teaching this method. What level of disciples should be taught what level of Dharma? This is the law. 10 luck points are deducted. The host can redeem the method of enlightenment, divide the levels of the method, and pass it on. Zhao Yu choked and dunked again. But facing the system, he was powerless and had no choice but to endure it. He immediately exchanged the enlightenment method, closed his eyes slightly, and began to comprehend it carefully. This method of enlightenment is quite simple. If it were turned into words, it would only be 100 crosses. In addition, when the system was passed down, the profound meaning had already been revealed, so it only took a few minutes for Zhao Yu to understand it. At this time, he closed the system light curtain and set his sights on Tony. Tony stood face to face in front of Zhao Yu for a long time. To be honest, he felt very awkward. But this person has never given up, even if he is controlled. It sounded childish. Although he was impatient, he still stared at Zhao Yu with wide eyes, as if he was cross-eyed, showing his unwillingness. Zhao Yu felt funny in his heart. These superheroes, to put it bluntly, are still mortals. In the Marvel world, there are superheroes who are so powerful that they can blow up planets with one blow. Their strength is strong enough, but their mentality and behavior are not fundamentally different from ordinary people. Therefore, they will always be humans, not immortals or gods. But now that Zhao Yu is here, whether they will be humans or immortals in the future depends on fate. Today, our sect has just been established. Because there are few disciples and the sect is small, we will temporarily call it sect. When the sect grows stronger in the future, we will call it sect again. You are my first disciple who founded the sect. Today as the master will teach you the Taoist Dharma, and I hope you can practice diligently and witness the Taoism as soon as possible. After Zhao Yu finished speaking, he slowly sat down cross-legged. Kneel down. Kneel down. Tony's eyes widened and he said in disbelief, "You asked me to kneel down?" "Yes," Zhao Yu said expressionlessly. "It's not me you're kneeling on, but the Tao. How can the Tao be passed lightly? You must remain in awe." A light flashed in his eyes. "Do you want to experience the feeling of a tight spell again?" Tony was almost on the verge of tears. A 30-year-old man, even his father, Howard, has never knelt down since he was a child, and now he has to kneel down in front of a devil. What about dignity? Although this devil said that he was kneeling on some kind of highway, but did Tony need to kneel on some kind of highway? But thinking of yesterday's pain, Tony was so angry that his whole body trembled, and his teeth suddenly clicked, but in the end, he still knelt down. Very good. Zhao Yu nodded secretly in his heart. Someone like Tony, who is so conceited to the point of selfishness and completely self-centered, must be impressed. Whether he wants it or not at this time. When he witnesses the mystery of the Great Road, he will be able to understand its meaning. Seeing Tony kneeling in front of him with great difficulty, Zhao Yu looked calm, slowly stretched out his fingers, and gently tapped Tony's eyebrows. Tony reflexively wanted to get out of the way, but was stared at by Zhao Yu. He finally didn't dare and inherited this move. Immediately, Tony felt some wonderful information pouring into his mind. The information was very strange. He had never heard of it before, but he could understand some of it. But he was extremely disgusted. "What have you done?" Tony yelled. "What did you put in my head?" Zhao Yu retracted his fingers, ignored Tony's protest, and said calmly, "I will teach you the Chenkin Talisman Qi Refining Technique in Volume 1 of the Foundation Building and Body Strengthening Technique, and the first level of the Basic Qi Refining Technique in Volume 2. The Qi refining method of the Chenkin Talisman is a high-level method along with the talisman. This method has 4 volumes, which are the Foundation Building Chapter, the Refining Essence and Gas Transformation Chapter, the Qi Refining Spirit Transformation Chapter, and a volume of the Basic Talisman. Each of the 3 volumes of the correct method has 9 volumes. Layers, combined with the 27th layer, will be refined to perfection, and you will reach the 9th level of spiritual transformation, and you can have a first glimpse of returning to the void. At this point, he paused and said, using your mortal calculations to describe it in the simplest way, a full blow of the returning earth immortal can directly blow up the earth, reach the peak of returning to the void, and glimpse the perfection of the heavenly immortal avenue. Immortal, the soul shines back into the void, the vitality of heaven and earth, and the small 1,000 laws are all used. If you try your best, you can destroy the solar system. Even if you only transform into the 9th level of gods, you can easily destroy the Earth's civilization. You can cross the void without the help of any external objects and enjoy lifespan as 3,000 years. Of course, this way of cultivation cannot be simply described by how many planets are broken and how many galaxies are destroyed. The secrets of the way are all-encompassing, and the cycle of life and death is all under your control. The inner mysteries are profound, but you need to understand them yourself. Having said this, Zhao Yu flipped over and took out 2 thread-bound books, which he handed to Tony, 1 volume each of Taiping Jing and Lingbao Wuliangduren Shengpen Miaojing, which are the basic knowledge of the Tao of Talisman. Take it. After returning home, study hard and don't slack off. Tony looked at this antique thread-bound book, gritted his teeth secretly, and kept it anyway. Zhao Yu nodded. As a teacher, I don't force you to practice here, nor do I force you to have great achievements in the talismans in the future. Cultivation is the process of witnessing the great road, the process of comprehending knowledge, and it belongs to you. Don't think that this is a useless thing that the gods are talking about. The so-called 3,000 avenues, the universal scientific and technological way on the earth today, if it can reach the end, it may also witness the avenue, but I have never seen such a technological civilization. On the contrary, but I know examples of individuals who have achieved the great Tao. One can see it, and the other cannot. How you choose depends on yourself. Master leads you in, and practice depends on the individual. Each has its own fate. Zhao Yu's words were not deceitful. He said he knew examples of individuals who had achieved greatness. Where did those advanced methods in the system exchange area come from? Zhao Yu acted like a master and waved his hand. You can go ahead. If you have any questions, you can come here at any time. I will teach you everything I have. If you don't come, I won't force you. Tony didn't care about Zhao Yu's deception. Although his heart was slightly affected, he still firmly believed that Zhao Yu was the devil. When Zhao Yu asked him to leave, he jumped up, turned around and left. Zhao Yu's voice finally came from behind. You can't understand me now, but I believe that one day, you will understand. By then, I will untie the curse for you. In addition, you that low-level spirituality, artificial intelligence is trapped by the master with a talisman, and it will be unlocked in 7 days. If you are interested, study hard. Zhao Yu was fooling around and suddenly thought, shouldn't it be time to sing, only you, now? Tony paused and immediately sped up, leaving the small villa with striding steps that seemed like a trot. In the afternoon, people from the home decoration company came here and decorated the villa according to their own ideas. Zhao Yu did not let them redecorate. He only wanted some furniture to be placed properly and then sent these people away. At this point, Zhao Yu finally breathed a sigh of relief. System, where are my luck-suppressing spiritual treasures and Dongtian paradise? Are you sure you want to accept it? Sure. As soon as the words fell, a large jade-colored seal and a ball of light shrouded in rays of light appeared in the left and right palms respectively. At the same time, information related to the Great Seal and the Light Group was also known to Zhao Yu. This big seal is the Tai seal of Zhao Yu's newly established sect, Tai sect. This treasure is only at the level of a magic weapon at this time, and its power is still shallow. However, this treasure is a treasure that can grow. I don't know what materials it is made of. It is only connected to the sect's luck. The stronger the sect's luck, the more powerful this treasure will be. The stronger, the more powerful this treasure is, the greater its ability to suppress luck. They complement each other, that's all. The first effect of the Tai treasure seal is to suppress luck. In addition, it also has the ability to attack and defend. When attacking, suppressing time and space, transporting the 5 elements, and thunder and flames are also at your fingertips. Of course, the current level is too low to manifest the true power. When defending, it can be used as the eye of the protective formation to enhance the power of the formation. The seal of the Tai seal is two yin and yang arowanas facing each other head to tail, half black and half white, matching the numbers of yin and yang. There are 4 images of holy beasts in the 4 directions of the imprinted body, which are the number of the 4 images of earth, wind, water and fire. The bottom of the seal is engraved with the divine pattern of the Great Way of Tai, surrounded by thunder patterns, and possesses all kinds of magic. Although this treasure seal is not even a magic weapon now, it is just a magic weapon, but Zhao Yu is already very satisfied and he does not force it. In other words, even if you give him an innate treasure, he won't be able to use it, right? On the contrary, Tai Baoyan is exactly the combination of hands. And the light group that bursts out with the rays of light is a 9th level cave heaven blessed land. The space is 10 miles in diameter and 3 miles high. There is a spiritual vein that emits the spiritual energy of heaven and earth at any time for practice. The cave heaven paradise is divided into 10 levels, with the 9th level being the lowest and the super level being the highest. Even if it is just a 9th level cave, the content of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is 100 times higher than that of the outside world. It's a good place to cultivate immortality. As for the placement method of this cave heaven and paradise, Zhao Yu also already knows. Just like a magic weapon, you need to identify its owner first, and then choose a place to place it. At that time, Zhou Yu bit his finger and dripped a drop of his heart's blood. He completed the initial recognition of the master and formed a potential connection with the cave heaven paradise. Whether it was a cave heaven paradise or a magic weapon or a spiritual treasure, complete refining required a long process. Of course, the holy calling card is not included in this list. It is a one-time, no, 3-time product. With this potential connection, it can be regarded as a preliminary recognition of the master. Once the magic power is obtained, the qi and blood are combined, and the body is refining every day, it will be perfect without any hindrance. Then, Zhao Yu chose this farm and used it as the basis to settle the cave heaven paradise, which Zhao Yu directly named Tai Cave Heaven. I saw a faint flash of rays of light, and the blessed land in my palm disappeared. But in Zhao Yu's heart, he already knew that Tai Cave Heaven and the farm were integrated into one. In fact, this cannot be said. Cave Paradise and the farm are in the same space, but not on the same level. In the words of this world, they are not on the same latitude. It's just that Tai Cave Sky is closely connected to the farm, or covered, because of Zhao Yu. To enter Tai Cave Heaven, unless Zhao Yu gives permission and is given a pass mark, or the magic power reaches a certain standard and can see through dimensions. This is because Zhao Yu has not completely refined the Cave Heaven Paradise. Once he has refined the Cave Heaven Blessed Land and can control it at will, it will be difficult for people with magical powers and abilities that exceed a certain standard to find the Cave Heaven. Ordinary people come in and see what the farm originally looked like. With Zhao Yu's permission, he can enter and exit Tai Cave. After settling the Dongtian Paradise, Zhao Yu had an idea and planned to transform the Dongtian, but he overestimated himself, or in other words, because the Dongtian was not completely refined, it was extremely difficult to transform it. Only the general terrain of the farm is projected into the cave sky, so that the terrain in the cave sky has some framework of the farm, and that's it. Just looking at Zhao Yu's sweaty back and tired expression, one can tell how much this action has consumed his energy and spirit. He had no choice but to stop and adjust his breath for a while before recovering. Thanks to his special physique, if an ordinary practitioner who has just stepped into the threshold cannot directly use the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, it may take 3 to 5 days to recover. There is no shortcut, he thought to himself. If you have advanced cultivation, you can do it with just a thought. But I am still in the stage of physical training, and I have not even developed a trace of my magic power. I only rely on Dongtian to initially recognize the master. Contact is not possible yet. But don't worry, now we only have one disciple, and it's still compulsive. After thinking about it, Zhao Yu decided to leave it at that. The sect now has no demand for the cave environment. He himself is still refining his body and has no demand for spiritual energy. It doesn't matter whether you enter the cave or not. As for Tony, Zhao Yu knew in his heart that if this world remained stable and he didn't deal with it properly, this big disciple who was forced to come here would probably never want to come here for the rest of his life. Zhao Yu can force him to stay here, but he cannot be forced to practice the great Tao. What's the use if people are not in their hearts? I'm afraid it will have the opposite effect. Secondly, Zhao Yu also guessed that whether it was Tony's inherent knowledge or his hatred for himself, the chi refining method of the Chenkin talisman taught to him would probably suffer the same fate. Maybe he would put it aside, even if it was imprinted in his mind. However, Zhao Yu believes that the chi refining method of the Chenkin talisman is attractive enough, Tony will notice it sooner or later. These are all part of Zhao Yu's calculations. He deliberately pushed things along. Tony Stark now only has 3 titles: Playboy, Genius, and Rich Man. As for the title of Iron Man, it's not yet known when he will be able to wear it. For Zhao Yu, the value of Tony with the title of Iron Man is much greater than the other 3 titles combined. Only Tony, who becomes Iron Man, is one of the true protagonists and has the luck of a true protagonist. This is what Zhao Yu wants. Brooklyn High School is a private school located on the border of Brooklyn and Queens. The distance between here and Zhao Yu's farm is not far, about 4 or 5 kilometers. Every morning, Zhao Yu would start from the farm and arrive near this school like an ordinary person, wearing sportswear and going for a morning jog. Here, there is a person worthy of Zhao Yu's attention. He had been observing this man for 2 or 3 days. Peter Parker. That is, the little spider of the future. When the divine possessed him, traces of Peter Parker remained in Zhao Yu's heart. Now that he was found, it was a matter of course. Zhao Yu ran all the way to the gate of Brooklyn High School without blushing or panting. As if there was no one else around, he entered a small forest next to him under the strange eyes of the security guard at the gate of the middle school, and slowly began to practice Tai Chi. This set of boxing techniques is the authentic Tai Chi that Zhao Yu redeemed from the system with 20 luck points. It has all the formulas and general moves. A boxing technique specially used to show off. In the past few days, under the nose of the high school security guard, I treated the grove in front of the school as a park and boxed on my own. Not only did the security guard feel strange, but it also aroused some curiosity. Not only the security guards, but as the time approached 8 o'clock, the students who went to school one after another also became somewhat curious about this weirdo who had appeared here for 2 or 3 days in a row. They were in 2s and 3s, pointing from time to time. Peter is thin and frail, with an ordinary appearance. Apart from being good at studies, he has no attraction in the eyes of most girls. Therefore, he has no luck with women. Even his childhood sweetheart neighbor Mary Jane, he could rarely talk to her. He has a crush on her, but he has low self-esteem and cannot tell her. Every morning he would wait until Mary went out and then follow her. Adolescent boys always have a lot of fantasies. He thinks that as long as he can look at Mary's back, it is a wonderful thing. Maybe Mary turned around and saw him one day, suddenly discovered his shining point, and then fall in love with him. Of course, he was overthinking it. Having just entered high school and being placed in the same class as Mary, he thought his opportunity had come. But the appearance of the sparkling Harry Osborn made him feel that his first love might be coming to an end. Although he was unwilling to do so, this kind-hearted boy had no other thoughts. He just blamed himself and was annoyed that he was incompetent. In addition to being frustrated in love, Peter was having a hard time at school. There are always bullies in every school, some are great at studying, and some are bullies. There are people like this in Brooklyn High School. Such people bring out a certain bad nature of human beings to the fullest, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. In Zhao Yu's view, this is an extension of pursuing advantages and avoiding disadvantages. If the school bully wants to show his power, he must bully others and scare the monkeys to achieve his goal of dominating the campus. He doesn't dare to touch the powerful, rich, and powerful, so a weakling like Peter Parker is the best target. Speaking of which, the first week since enrolling was pretty good, probably because the school bullies were observing the target. From the second week on, Peter suffered. They will be ridiculed and provoked at any time in the classroom, and they are even more unscrupulous during physical education classes. Just catching a small thing, such as glancing at the school bully, would result in a beating. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Try another one. Of course, this is impossible. At first sight, I was beaten. If it was in the toilet or in the corner, Peter could hold it in. What could a person like him do if he couldn't hold it in? But the key is that the school bully often repairs him severely in front of Mary Jane, Peter's sweetheart. His dignity and face were trampled to pieces. This made him extremely frustrated. Sometimes Peter would imagine that one day he would slap the school bully to the ground in front of Mary, and then Mary would fall into his arms. But after the fantasy, all that's left is powerlessness. All he can do is seek advantages and avoid disadvantages, try not to meet the school bully. Pushing his bicycle and looking at the bumpy back among the girls in front of him, Peter was filled with longing. Seeing that he had arrived at the school gate, he planned to catch up in a few steps, pretending to meet Mary suddenly, and prepare to say hello to Mary. Inadvertently, he caught a glimpse of the figure in the woods next to him. He was slightly startled and stopped. Zhao Yu's senses have been enveloped in this area. As practice deepens, the body's special instinct becomes stronger and stronger. At first, it was only 10 meters in radius. Now, after completing the physical training and getting involved in the first training of Chaos Real Body, this area has expanded to 100 meters in radius. Peter followed Mary, and Zhao Yu noticed every change in expression on his face. Until Peter saw him accidentally, he happened to punch a hole and silently punched a hole in a waist-thick tree. Shi Shiren pulled out his arm, Zhao Yu stood up and exhaled a long stream of white air, like an arrow from a string, which shot out for 3 or 4 meters before slowly dissipating. Then, he turned back, glanced at Peter as if casually, smiled and nodded to him, and then walked away. Peter opened his mouth wide and looked at Zhao Yu's back, which seemed to be slowly leaving. He yelled and rushed into the woods under the crazy looks of the students around him. He touched the big tree, trying to make sure it wasn't fake, and it really wasn't fake. Then he put his hand into the fresh and big hole and took it out. His hand was full of fine sawdust. He was sure that it was finer than the sawdust produced by the machine, like flour. How did he do it? Peter muttered. On this day, Peter saw someone and told him what happened in the morning. Harry, Mary, those classmates were all annoyed by him. But to Peter's dismay, no one believed him. Even Mary thought that Peter did this to attract her attention. In fact, many students think so. They felt that Peter had finally figured it out, but the method was very ordinary. Seeing that they didn't believe it, Peter wanted to take them outside to have a look. Seeing is believing, but the school bully suddenly arrived. As a result, Peter was dealt with again. Standing up with a bruised nose and swollen eyes, Peter looked at the triumphant back of the school bully and clenched his fists fiercely. The next morning Peter arrived an hour earlier than usual. When we arrived at the school gate, it was quiet and there was no one except the security guard who had just gone to work. He looked around, hunched into the woods, and took out a camera from his backpack. I'll take a photo and see your expressions. That's what Peter planned. After all, he is a young man. Although he is a little cowardly, he is still young and energetic, so he always has to fight for something. He can't beat the school bully, but he can always slap him in the face with the facts, right? He also prayed secretly, hoping that that person would definitely come today and show that kind of power that was different from ordinary people. He first took pictures of yesterday's hole in the tree from different angles, then found a good shelter and waited quietly. Zhao Yu did not disappoint Peter. Here he comes again. Still wearing the same white sportswear, running slowly but really fast from a distance, Peter saw it. He looked happy, felt relieved, hid himself, and then got ready for shooting. Zhao Yu walked into the woods slowly, and he laughed, which made Peter who was hiding beside him feel strange. Then I heard Zhao Yu say, "Come out." Peter looked around and finally determined that this sentence was meant for himself. He walked out awkwardly. That's morning. Zhao Yu turned to face him, smiled and nodded. It is indeed early. You are at least an hour earlier than before. Peter scratched his hair. His face was hot. He looked around and explained with a guilty conscience, yes, it's an hour early. I went to bed too early last night, I got up early today, and there's nothing wrong at home. The smile on Zhao Yu's face deepened and he pointed to the camera in Peter's hand. So, tell me, what do you do with the camera? Are you going on an outing today? Photograph rare scenery. Ah, yes. Peter quickly followed the nonsense. How do you know? We are going for an outing today, and I brought a camera. That's why I came so early. Zhao Yu didn't want to continue talking to this kid, so he said instead, you have a blue nose and swollen eyes, but you still want to go on an outing. Aren't you afraid of being embarrassed in front of girls? Peter was immediately at a loss. Well, Zhao Yu looked at him and interrupted Peter. You are so thin, you must be the target of bullying. Am I right? He pointed to the hole in the tree next to him. A man must first have strength. With strength, you have confidence, and your timid look is really not eye-catching. You saw it yesterday, right? Is it for taking pictures today? What are you doing? Show it to others. Prove that you were right and not lying. Quote. Peter lowered his head, secretly thinking, how come this person knows everything? Zhao Yu took a few steps forward, came to Peter, and looked at him carefully. The gaze was so penetrating that it made Peter feel a little nauseous, as if he was naked in front of a strange man. That feeling was simply too bad. Peter quickly took a few steps back. What are you doing? Zhao Yu didn't answer. He nodded and shook his head in Peter's eyes. Finally, in response to Peter's doubts, he said, I think you have a fine frame and some talent. We are destined. If you like, we can follow this road and find me at the musket farm 5 kilometers away. Maybe I'll be in a happy mood and teach you how to do it. After saying that, Zhao Yu turned around and left. Peter was a little surprised. He stretched out his hand and said, what does, teach me 2 hands, mean? Is that the one? He pointed to the hole in the tree. Zhao Yu's laughter came. If you are willing. Spider-Man has value, there's no doubt about it. But this time, Zhao Yu did not intend to follow the path of forcing Tony to win. Tony is already 30 years old. People of this age are well informed. Their worldview, outlook on life, and values have all been finalized. They cannot be fooled, and their status also determines the fact that it is difficult to fool him. And what about the little spider? I just started high school. Such a boy is best fooled. Especially since he has not yet become Spider-Man and is not living a very good life. Therefore, Zhao Yu is not worried that little spider will not come to him, it is just a matter of time. 3 days, or 5 days. Parker is indeed young and easy to fool. But after all, he is a smart man. He thought about it for 2 days. On the morning of the 3rd day, which was Sunday, he came to the door of his neighbor Mary's house. Mary was very surprised that Peter came to her openly. In Mary's memory, Peter, a sweetheart of the same age, was always cowardly and had low self-esteem. This wasn't her cup of tea, even though she was well aware of Peter's crush. Her ideal is to find a rich boyfriend and become a big star that attracts everyone's attention. Instead of following an extremely boring researcher for the rest of his life who is most likely to stay in the laboratory all day, never leaving the door or taking a step forward. Peter studied well, but she didn't care. Standing in front of Peter, Mary looked at him like this, making Peter lower his head. Mary's eyes flashed with a trace of speechlessness. She didn't even have the courage to look at him. Is something wrong? She asked. Hearing this, Peter lowered his head and said, Mary, do you think a man should first have power? After saying this, he quickly explained, someone told me that a man must have strength. With strength, he has confidence. Do you think this is right? You should have a deep understanding. Mary pursed her lips. Isn't it because Black has the power to bully you that he can run rampant in the school? But Mary interrupted Peter. With power, you can bully people like Blake, but you can also ensure that you are not bullied. Peter was silent for a long time and nodded, I understand. Then he turned and left. Mary was a little confused, came to her just for this sentence. She looked at Peter's retreating back, shook her head, and put the doubt aside. After practicing all night, I was speechless. After a period of practice, Zhao Yu's data in the system light curtain showed that it had changed. It is no longer physical strength and soul strength, but merged into one, leaving only one data, the first level of the mortal body. This change occurred after Zhao Yu's physical strength and soul strength exceeded 1000 at the same time. In other words, the sign of the first level of the mortal body is reflected in Zhao Yu's physical strength and soul strength of more than 1000. He specifically spent 10 points of luck to consult the system. Only then did I realize that this was a special case. The first level of the mortal body is only the first realm of the physical body, depending on the individual's potential. When one breaks through the first physical bottleneck, one enters the first level of the mortal body. Some individuals have very deep potential, and their data needs to reach hundreds, or even hundreds, before they can break through to the first level of the mortal body. Some individuals have very low potential, maybe less than 10, and then encounter a bottleneck. After a breakthrough, they are still at the first level of the mortal body. The difference is very large. Entering the first level of the mortal body means that the body has been successfully built. Generally speaking, when practicing the immortal way, you can advance to chi refining after your physical body reaches the first level of the mortal body. But Zhao Yu's chaos real body is not an ordinary method of cultivating immortals. One turn of 9 refinements, each refinement of the mortal body advances to one level, and when the first turn is completed, it is the 9th level of the mortal body. The chaos true body will not be able to cultivate its magic power until the second turn. The first turn only focuses on strengthening the physical body and tapping its potential. The practice method of chaos true body can be said to be a kind of self-abuse. Idle people simply cannot bear the pain caused by this method. It has the most stringent requirements on both will and physique. If your willpower is not up to par, you will not be able to hold on and will have to give up halfway. If your physique is not up to par, your body will collapse and die during the cultivation process. For example, the 9 transformations mysterious skill and the 89 mysterious skills are somewhat related to the supreme skill of chaos true body. The representative figure who practices the 9 transformations mysterious Kung is probably Erlang Shenyang Jian. This man is a human god hybrid with an extraordinary physique. The representative of 89 mysterious skills is a monkey, a born and raised monkey. It is precisely because of his extraordinary physique that he can practice such a method. Ordinary people are directly excluded from the threshold. Zhao Yu's ability to cultivate the true form of chaos is closely related to his special physique after time travel. But even so, every time I practice, I feel like I'm dying. The transformation of the real body of chaos does not involve absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It is just a simple exercise, using special movements to stimulate the blood and flush the physical body. If that were the case, there would be no difference between the chaos true body and the ordinary body refining method. The key is that when the method is operating and the chi and blood are drawn, a powerful force comes from the void and is exerted on the cultivator, so that every movement of the cultivator must use all his strength. This kind of power targets all elements, the body, the senses, and even the soul. Every time he practiced, it was like running a long distance with the world on his back. Every time he was crushed to pieces and then reassembled, such pain made it almost impossible for even Zhao Yu to endure. But he persisted in the end. And he has already completed the first level of practice and is about to break through the second level. In the morning, if you eat dozens of kilograms of beef stewed last night, your stomach will be like a huge furnace, quickly refining the beef into essence and replenishing your body. He was moving his hands and feet on the lawn beside the small lake outside the villa. Every time you practice, your physique will be significantly enhanced, and the refreshing and numbing feeling caused by the rush of energy is probably the only reward after suffering. It will be about 20 days from the time we set up the mountain gate here. In 20 days, Zhao Yu completed the physical training and officially embarked on the journey of the avenue, which cannot but be said to be a miracle. This has a lot to do with his physique, but at the same time, it is also inseparable from the assistance of system resources. When he was possessed by the Holy Spirit, he had already fully understood the secrets of the first 9 steps of the chaos real body, and there were no bottlenecks in his cultivation. However, the characteristics of the chaos true body's first turn determine its dependence on food supplement resources. Because it is impossible to directly absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, dietary supplements are the only way to absorb nutrients. Dozens or hundreds of kilograms of beef per meal is just a piece of cake. A single piece of beef is still a drop in the bucket for the cultivation of the true body of chaos, therefore, elixirs are the first choice. Fortunately, there is a system, and fortunately I still have a lot of luck in my hand. But after this period of time, more than half of the luck value has been consumed. After exchanging the Chenkin Talisman Chi refining technique and the Divine Enlightenment technique, the remaining luck value was just over 5,000. As of now, there are only 2,000 left. Take at least 10 essence pills every day, each pill is worth 15 luck points. 3,000 luck points were spent on this. It's impossible not to spend money. Zhao Yu always has a sense of urgency. Although there is still no news about the main mission of the second stage of the system, Zhao Yu knows that it will definitely not be far away. When the time comes, you will most likely have to take action yourself. The Holy Summoning card is a guarantee, but you can't pin everything on the Holy Summoning card. After all, this world is still too dangerous. This sense of crisis urged Zhao Yu, making him eager to become stronger. After coming down from Tai Chi, Zhao Yu exhaled breath arrows and slowly finished the exercise. Although Tai Chi is just a boxing technique practiced by ordinary people, it still has some effect on regulating the body. Then Zhao Yu raised his head, looked at the farm gate, and then walked there casually. A young man was riding a bicycle along the road to the farm. He was filled with expectation. Would that person teach him how to do it? Do you feel confident when you have power, just like that man who punched a hole in a tree? Can it make people feel safe? He was a little uneasy. Finally arriving in front of the gate, he looked up and saw a smiling figure standing there. Come in. Zhao Yu turned around and entered the farm. Hey, sir. Peter chased and shouted, but he couldn't catch up with the person in front of him. He was obviously just strolling. Okay. Why can't you catch up? You knew I was coming. You knew I was coming at this time. How did you know? He had many questions in his mind. Zhao Yu didn't respond to him and just left. It's like shrinking into an inch. This is not a magic or magical power, but an instinct. Ever since he entered the first level of the mortal body, his body seemed to have unlocked a small treasure and discovered this instinct. This instinct seems to be similar to shrinking into an inch. You can stride 30 meters away with one step with all your strength. It seems like one step, but it is actually comparable to the 30 or 50 steps of an ordinary person. The time required for one step is less than that for ordinary people. The difference is clear at a glance. This instinct allows Zhao Yu to feel some of the mysteries contained in the earth. It is a very strange feeling. Zhao Yu knows that it may be the Earth's magnetic field. Every step he takes instinctively steps on certain nodes of the magnetic field, using the power of the magnetic field as a carrier to push himself forward. When Peter stopped panting, they arrived at the lakeside outside the villa. Zhao Yu stood still, turned around and said with a smile, "What a skinny boy, you really need to practice hard." Peter took a few deep breaths, bent over, supported his knees, and said intermittently, "Sir, you walk so fast." Zhao Yu smiled and said meaningfully, "Maybe you can." "Forget it." Peter pressed his waist, with a trace of pain on his face. "I just hope I can't be bullied by Blake." If you haven't exercised for a long time and suddenly run too fast, you will feel a dull pain in your waist and abdomen, which is quite uncomfortable. This is what Peter is experiencing now. Your wish is really small. Zhao Yu smiled. "Let's rest for a while, I can't even speak clearly." Peter hesitated. After a while, Peter finally recovered and stood up straight. Sir, Peter was a little hard to say. He was a shy boy. Zhao Yu said, "You want to say, I asked you to come, and then you came and asked me if I wanted to teach you, right?" "Yes, that's right." Peter nodded quickly and kept humming. Zhao Yu did not answer directly, but asked, "So, can I ask you a few questions first?" "Of course," Peter said quickly with an expectant look on his face. "To what extent do you think an individual's power can reach?" "Individual power, just like you, punching a hole in a big tree with one punch." "Yes, do you think that's very strong?" Zhao Yu said. "Of course." Peter did not hesitate. "Those boxing champions can't do it. They are just performing on the stage. They may be very big, but if you ask them to hit a tree, they will definitely cry for father and mother." As the most ordinary boy, the world Peter comes into contact with is just the world of ordinary people. He didn't know that there were many powerful people in this world who could destroy heaven and earth. In his opinion, the boxing champion is very powerful. In contrast, Zhao Yu punched a hole in a big tree, but it was nothing. In his eyes, Zhao Yu is the strongest. Zhao Yu smiled and shook his head. "That's nothing." He stood with his hands behind his hands, facing the mirror-like lake. The power of an individual can destroy planets, destroy galaxies, and make a civilization that has developed for millions of years and spread across the stars disappear into thin air, to the point of destroying the world and rebuilding it. Compared to punching a hole in a big tree, that is just a small force. Peter blinked. "Sir, are you telling me a fairy tale?" Zhao Yu sighed slightly. "Maybe." "Then, your name is Peter Parker, right?" Peter nodded. "My name is Peter Parker." "But," he said, "sir, how do you know?" "I've been observing you for several days." Zhao Yu didn't hide it. Peter was stunned. have you been observing me for several days? Why? Because you have that potential and talent. Zhao Yu said. Potential, potential. If you say yes, can I become like you, beating a tree? Peter became happy. It turns out that he actually has a promising side. One should not belittle oneself. Zhao Yu could clearly feel Peter's psychology. Although you are very thin and have low self-esteem, if I say you have it, you have it. Peter suddenly felt a sense of gratitude for being recognized. He looked at Zhao Yu. But, they all. Zhao Yu waved his hand. The past is all dust. You should look forward and aim at the future. Then, let me ask you one last question. He said, when you have power, what will you do? When you can break a big tree with one punch, blow up a planet with one punch, destroy the galaxy, let powerful civilizations and countless creatures attack you. When you have just a plaything in your hands, what are you going to do? Justice, evil, protection, destruction, or let nature take its course? Peter was stunned. He didn't know how to answer at all. You don't need to answer my questions immediately. You are just a young man. These questions are too far away for you, and you must experience them yourself. Zhao Yu looked at Peter seriously. Your future behavior will tell me your answer. Then he turned around and walked into the villa. Come in with me. Peter's mind was confused and he followed Zhao Yu into the villa. At this time, in the lobby of the villa, the layout was also presented in front of Peter's eyes. Very empty. There wasn't much furniture around, just an inconspicuous sofa in the corner. The light is unclear but not dark, just right. The front wall, where the fireplace is covered with a picture. On the picture are some unexplained lines, and in the middle is a big character that Peter doesn't recognize. It's the word, Dao. Under the Dao map, there is an antique futon, which is where Zhao Yuping usually sits in meditation. Dao Tu and futon are not treasures, they are just cheap items exchanged from the system, which can be roughly done. But it also gave the whole hall an indescribable charm. Makes the mind calm and clear. Zhao Yu slowly sat down on the futon and waved to Peter, who was looking around. Come here. Peter stepped forward as instructed. To gain strength, you need to learn certain methods. Zhao Yu said. If you want me to teach you a method, do you understand how to become a disciple? Apprenticeship. Peter thought for a while. His eyes lit up. It's like an Eastern movie, Apprenticeship. Is he rich? Peter is not opposed to this. Teenagers are always different from adults. Tony felt that apprenticeship was an act of trampling on his dignity, while Peter took it for granted. He knelt down directly, imitating the look in the movie, prostrating himself and shouting, I'm rich, I'm rich. Hearing this, Zhao Yu could no longer pretend to be a master. He touched his forehead and said helplessly, you should just speak English and treat the master as your teacher, okay? Oh, Peter quickly called the teacher several times. Zhao Yu reminded, remember, this teacher is different from the teacher in your school. The teacher in the school is a profession. And as your teacher, master, I am a teacher and a father. Do you understand? Okay. Don't ask any more questions. Zhao Yu waved his hand. Since you accept me as your teacher, I will first tell you about the specific situation of our sect. My sect? Peter blinked. It's just the sect that knows about it, right? You've seen the movie, Sect. Zhao Yu didn't even know how to explain it. Oh, Peter seemed to understand. This sect is now called Tai sect. You will understand the specific reason later. Zhao Yu didn't bother to explain it carefully to Peter, and even he didn't understand. Peter is different from Tony. If he wants to fool Tony, the more mysterious he is, the better. As for Peter, he is now willing to become a disciple, so there is no need for him. You are my second disciple. You also have a senior brother. I have a senior brother. Peter took advantage of the opportunity. Who? Tony Stark. Zhao Yu said. Quote. Peter was surprised. That playboy, a rich man. Is he my senior brother? But he is rich, I think he is older than you. How do you know that my teacher is younger than him? Zhao Yu shook his head and said, my teacher is already 50 years old. 30 in the previous life, plus 18 in this life, it's almost 50, right? When Peter heard this, he looked in disbelief. But he looks like he is only 18 years old. Rejuvenation and immortality, do you understand? Zhao Yu said impatiently. Stop asking a few questions and listen to me. Oh, Peter quickly shut up. Our sect has a complete inheritance system. If you practice our skills, you will become more and more powerful. As my teacher said before, destroying planets and galaxies can only be done at the click of a finger. But I'm rich, I just want not to be bullied. Peter couldn't help but interrupt. Shut up. Zhao Yu was angry. I told you to say less, don't you hear me? Peter's neck shrank and he quickly shut up. Zhao Yu exhaled. You are the second disciple of my master, so naturally you have to practice your own technique. I have 3,000 techniques. Your senior brother Tony practices the talisman technique. Which one do you want to practice? What is the Fu Dao method? Peter didn't know. It's not a thing. Zhao Yu glared at him fiercely. Forget it, you first practice a bodybuilding boxing technique. We will talk about which one you should do later. He was almost certain that as long as he explained it, it would make it more difficult to explain. This little spider has too many questions, just ask them if you don't understand a little bit, but it's too troublesome to explain, and it will bring up more questions, which can't be explained at all. So I simply passed on the method without explaining it. Behave, don't move. Zhao Yu said something and pointed at Peter's eyebrows. At the same time, a pure yang body refining boxing technique that had just been purchased from the system was imprinted on Peter's mind. Chun yang body refining fist. Peter said it word by word in broken Chinese. This is a method of transmitting ideas, and what is passed down is the profound meaning, not the specific words. But if you want to interpret it, it must be in Chinese. Zhao Yu nodded and said, yes, this is the basic body training boxing method of our sect. It is neutral and peaceful. It is most suitable for foundation building. It is also convenient for changing to more advanced methods after breaking through body training and foundation building. Chunyang body refining boxing is also a boxing technique that Zhao Yu just redeemed. The whole article is all about physical training methods and does not involve the method of refining qi. But even so, this boxing method requires 98 luck points, which is the most expensive among all bodybuilding boxing methods, except for the supreme methods such as Chaos True Body. Because of its peaceful nature, Zhao Yu planned to use it as an introductory technique for all disciples of Tai sect in the future. With the acceptance of Little Spider as a disciple, there will definitely be more and more disciples in the future, so preparations must be made to form a systematic cultivation method. This is what Zhao Yu just thought of. The method is directly imprinted on your mind, so you should be able to understand some of it. After imparting the technique, Zhao Yu said to Peter, who was savoring the information in his mind, however, in order to fully understand the profound meaning of this boxing technique, there are still some requirements in terms of cultural foundation. Peter, starting from today, you must study Chinese well. Peter came back to his senses, let out a sigh, and said, I know I'm rich. Yes. Zhao Yu saw that he was distracted and knew that he was concerned about the Dharma in his mind, so he said, you should experience it first. After saying that, Zhao Yu closed his eyes. After about half an hour, Peter sorted through the information in his mind and finally came back to his senses. He exclaimed, Shifu, it's amazing. How did you do it? Zhao Yu opened his eyes and said calmly, you will know later. But, I want to know now. Zhao Yu frowned. I will let you know later, and you will know later. Don't ask again. Oh, Peter hesitated to speak, and the curiosity on his face could not be concealed. Zhao Yu stood up. Come out with me. He led Peter out of the villa and came to the lakeside lawn. My teacher tells you that you are not allowed to ask any questions other than Chunyang body refining boxing. Do you understand? Now, my teacher will explain this to you in full. The content of Menquan technique. The so-called pure yang, you can think of it as pure yang and incomparable pure yang and harmony. I know he is rich and pure, but what does yang mean? Zhao Yu wiped his face, resisted the temptation to punch him, and said patiently, it's like the sunshine in spring, do you understand? Oh, Chunyang is the pure spring sunshine, I know Zaifu. Zhao Yu slapped him away. Peter got up aggrievedly, not knowing where he was wrong. Forget it. Why should I explain this to you? Zhao Yu sighed repeatedly and lamented for a while before saying, this boxing technique has 9 levels and 81 ways, 729 moves. Don't ask me, what does each level, each path, and each move mean? Just practice accordingly. If you practice the 9-level boxing method perfectly and without leakage, if you open all the acupoints, you will have 100-level divine power. The 9-level boxing will be perfect and the power will be extremely powerful. This jun is a quantifier, just like your pounds and tons. 1 jun is 30 kilograms, which is 15 kilograms. How much do you think 1,000 jun is? 15,000 kilograms, 15 tons. In just 1 second, the boy got the result, and then he said in surprise, after practicing, you will have 15 tons of strength. Wow, that's amazing. A car only weighs about 1 ton. If I had the strength of 15 tons. Zhao Yu watched speechlessly as the boy fell into his own world in an instant, and slapped him directly. I asked you to be quiet, don't you understand? The little spider touched his forehead and suddenly didn't dare to speak. This is just an average. The same method, practiced by different people, will have different effects. It is related to people's potential. Those with deep potential may have 30 tons of power after reaching consummation. Those with shallow potential may only have 30 tons of power. 3 to 5 tons or even less. Of course, the premise is to practice it to perfection. This boxing technique needs to be practiced every day and pondered all the time. It must not be missed, and it must be practiced diligently. Fishing for 3 days and drying the net for 2 days is not enough. From now on, you must come to me every day, at least practice hard. 3 hours. The teacher will teach you how to practice. Come on, now draw out the moves in your mind one by one. We will start with the first move today. Peter's physical condition, to be honest, is incredibly poor now. They are one of the worst among their peers in the United States. After the boxing moves were rehearsed, they were all crooked and almost out of shape. Before he could finish the 9 moves, he fell down from exhaustion. Fortunately, Zhao Yu has enough patience. This is also a training process for him. This set of boxing techniques has just been redeemed. Although Zhao Yu has learned the true meaning, he still cannot understand it thoroughly. In the process of teaching Peter, Zhao Yu himself gradually became familiar with this boxing technique. In order to help Peter get started as soon as possible, Zhao Yu had no choice but to give this kid an essence pill. He was too thin and had poor basic conditions, making it difficult to get started. Peter swallowed the essence pill doubtfully, and felt a wave of heat suddenly emanating from his stomach, and the endless energy directly dispelled his fatigue. He was no longer surprised. Coming here today, he was surprised enough to be numb. Just licking his face. Shifu, this pill is so effective. Can you give me a few more bottles? Zhao Yu responded with a slap. Do you think these are Lu Wei Duong pills? How many bottles are there? Get up and continue practicing. This time the effect is much better. Under Zhao Yu's guidance and correction, Peter finally completed all the punches. He felt a numbing feeling all over his body, which made him almost groan. Zhao Yu slapped him on the back of the head again. Continue. System, why do you force me to form a sect? Each of them has no foundation and is too slow to learn. I can almost imagine how troublesome it will be in the future. The host does not need to complain. The system has systematic reasons. The ultimate task of the host is to become the Taoist ancestor. It is the host's duty to preach and teach. Preaching and teaching. Zhao Yu sighed. I think the legendary Taoist Hongjun is the smartest. He waited until he became a saint before preaching, so he is much better than me. Hongjun is destined. How can the host be compared with Hongjun? The host is not a native creature of this universe. Only by gathering luck through preaching can we achieve our goals, instead of preaching after we have achieved our goals. Please order the hosts in order. Experience it carefully. Quote. Zhao Yu was speechless. After a long while, he said again, I don't think these superheroes from the Western world are suitable for cultivating immortality. What do you think, if I go directly to the East now? Didn't the host already make a decision? Zhao Yu sighed. Yes, I have already decided. He felt very powerless. In fact, it was not that he had not considered preaching in the countries in the East. After all, the people there were much better than the people here in terms of cultural foundation. At least it's much easier to get started. But after Zhao Yu fully found out the situation in the eastern country of this world, he gave up. Marvel is worthy of being a marvel for Westerners. On this earth in this universe, the Eastern world is dispensable. Everything is based on the Western world. The Eastern world does exist, but it is different from what it was before Zhao Yu traveled through it. There is no China at all. Even Chinese culture is intermittent in this world, with no obvious inheritance system. Even Chinese is a very rare language. On the continent of Asia, there are no countries dominated by Han people at all. They are all a mixture of black, white and yellow. Even Nanbang and Fuzhang are the same. This world is the world of Westerners. After understanding all this, Zhao Yu knew that the situation was actually the same whether in the East or the West. More importantly, because this is a world dominated by Westerners, luck is obviously biased towards Westerners. The mystery can be seen from the fact that most superheroes gather in the United States. After much deliberation, it is best to stay in the United States. After all, it's not the original world. He sighed. But this is good, at least it makes me less worried. If there is China in this world, and the situation is exactly the same as before the time travel, then Zhao Yu must take that kind of cultural origin into consideration when he acts. There may be a situation where one's hands are tied. This is not a good thing for Zhao Yu. The ultimate mission points directly to Marvel's most powerful god. If you still have various concerns and a big baggage to carry, the difficulty must be at least raised a notch. Zhao Yu was actually a little lucky. In the following period, in addition to the 3 hours of rest that Zhao Yu had to take every day, Zhao Yu spent the remaining 21 hours, 12 hours of which were used to practice the true form of chaos, and 3 hours to realize the Chenkin talisman and refine qi. 3 hours were used to teach Peter the secrets of the FA while simultaneously experiencing the Chunyang body refining boxing technique, and the last 3 hours were used to relax. The combination of work and rest is quite fulfilling. Tony has not appeared once during this period of time, but Zhao Yu has been paying attention to him. From the media, I sometimes call Pepper to ask about the situation. It's not surprising that Zhao Yu has Pepper's phone number. The complicated relationship between Zhao Yu and Tony makes it difficult for Pepper to understand. But she still left a number, a way of thinking as an assistant. She felt that Tony was personally involved in Zhao Yu's affairs, and the connection between them should be very close. Although there seems to be some awkwardness between the two. Zhao Yu was just paying attention, wanting to know when Tony would become Iron Man. Maybe then, he will make a move. Perhaps, the second phase of the main mission will be released by then. Rather than just waiting for Tony to become Iron Man, Zhao Yu had other ideas for Peter. Zhao Yu arranged for Tony to follow the path of talismans, taking into account Tony's achievements in steel armor. If Tony achieves success in talismans, what will happen to his steel armor? When various talismans are engraved on the armor, strong, defensive, offensive, earth, wind, water, and fire, all-encompassing, what will Iron Man be like at that time? As for Peter, Zhao Yu felt that there was no need to force him to become a little spider. Maybe becoming a little spider is a bad thing. Being infected by spider genes, in terms of immortality, means changing your bloodline. It makes one's body lose its purity, which may hinder future development. He also wanted to see the difference between Peter who gained strength through practice and Peter who was infected by spiders, and whether there would be any changes in luck. Or, is it inevitable that Peter will become Spider-Man? There is a sense of temptation in it. Of course, if Peter still becomes Spider-Man in the end, it will be equivalent to a reminder to Zhao Yu. It will make him more alert. Peter had a very fulfilling life. Although every day was packed with time, he just felt that his heart had become full. As his practice deepened, his mentality gradually changed. People's mentality always changes with strength. In this world, there are many super-villains who, when they suddenly gain power, cannot control the changes in their souls, become obsessed, and bring their negative emotions to the extreme. Zhao Yu once considered recruiting some supervillains as disciples, but in the end, he rejected it. The reason lies in this. Except for a very few of these people who embarked on the path of villains due to various unavoidable reasons, the rest are basically the kind of dead wood that cannot be made. No matter how powerful they are given, they will still think about how to rule the world and how to destroy the world, which is very extreme. Even the true demonic path is not like this. The devil's way is also a way, and it may cause destruction, but destruction is not the goal, and destruction will never be the main purpose. The magic way is to control the inner demons, rather than being controlled by the inner demons. Those supervillains, they have already destroyed themselves. To use an immortal saying, it means losing the foundation of Taoism. If you join the Tai sect, you may not only get no benefits but also suffer backlash. Although Zhao Yu is not afraid of backlash, it is always a hidden danger. You must know that his ultimate opponent is the most powerful god in Marvel. Furthermore, Tao should not be spread lightly, even the magic method requires careful planning before it can be spread. Peter practiced Chunyong body refining boxing. After half a month, his physical and mental outlook changed greatly. As his energy and blood became thicker and his body became stronger, he became brighter and brighter. Although he was still so rude, at least now he would not lower his head when facing a girl, and would not dare to look at her. Courage is the second change. He has no intention of avoiding the school bully. It's not because of face or anything else, it's just that I subconsciously feel that there is really no need to hide. This is an instinctive reaction. If you subconsciously think that you are stronger, you will naturally not be afraid. After half a month of practice, this kid is actually a hard-working guy. After school every day, I would practice hard at Zhao Yu's farm for 3 hours. Then I would go home and have dinner. After my uncle and his wife went to bed, they would sneak out again and practice hard in the night. Up to now, his purpose of practicing is no longer not to avoid being bullied, but to feel that practicing itself is a very comfortable and fulfilling thing. It gradually evolved into a hobby. Every time after hard training, he clearly felt the feeling of gradually getting stronger, which he felt was amazing. I feel that my efforts are not in vain. He found it very meaningful. It's like the feeling of studying hard, getting first in the exam, and getting a scholarship. Scholarships and first prizes only come once or twice a year. Cultivation is changing every moment. This feeling is the most profound. Of course, what Peter didn't know was that Zhao Yu had been suffering from physical pain, and it was getting more and more painful. At first, only 1 essence pill was enough for the boy every day, but as the practice deepened, it was now 2 pills. Each pill has 15 luck points, and for accepting Peter as a disciple, the system only rewarded 300 luck points, which have almost been spent by now. This is a loss-making business. Peter didn't know, he just felt that Shifu was too good to him. Just like Uncle Ben, no wonder he is called Master, no wonder he is called both teacher and father. He was filled with gratitude from the bottom of his heart. On this day, Peter was carrying his school bag and riding his bicycle like a gust of wind. When he saw a familiar classmate, he would greet them with a bright face. He used to say hello, but in a low voice and very timidly. But now, he feels that he can face anyone. Yesterday, Shifu had told him that he should balance work with rest and let him rest for 2 days before going. Therefore, he is in a very good mood today. He plans to confess his love to Mary. And in front of everyone, he will reverse everyone's impression of him. He is no longer the cowardly Peter Parker with low self-esteem, but a new Peter Parker who is sunny, full of hope and full of imagination. The school is right in front of you. In the past half month, due to his practice, Peter has become transparent in the eyes of almost all his classmates. He makes time to practice in the morning, does not waste a minute, and does not go to school until the eve of class. At noon, after eating alone, I would hide in the woods and experience the boxing skills. After school, Sayazi went straight to the farm. All in all, he had hardly communicated with anyone in the past half month. However, when he was in school before, except when he was receiving scholarships after exams, he was basically transparent and didn't attract much attention. Only a handful of people who were familiar with him, or those who were right next to him in the classroom, felt his change slightly. Locking his bicycle, Peter walked into the school with his head held high and confidently. Far away, he saw a person who should have made him very angry, standing at the top of the stairs with a few followers. Blake, the school bully classmate. But at this moment, Peter suddenly realized that this person seemed so far away from him. He knew very clearly that he only needed 2 fingers to press Blake to the ground and rub him. For a time, the original hatred and anger turned out to be very light. There is a feeling of waning interest. He originally thought that he would seek revenge on Blake and hit him hard in the face, but now he was no longer interested. The difference in strength gave him a completely different feeling. Half a month ago, he was thin and had low self-esteem. Half a month later, he was strong and confident. With the daily supplement of Jingqi pills and Zhao Yu's step-by-step guidance, Peter's Chunyong body refining boxing has entered the third level. It must be said that as one of the protagonists, he is always very outstanding in some aspects. The place. Except for a very few of the superheroes in the Marvel world, the others are either genius doctors, presidents, or chairmen of the board. They are not ordinary people. Even though Little Spider is a grassroots person, he is extremely good at learning. In other words, the understanding is beyond ordinary people. With enough guidance, enough supplements, and my own excellent understanding, I reached the third level in half a month. I can move my hands and feet with tens of thousands of kilograms of strength, and I have also just mastered the force-generating skills of boxing. I will face it again. It's natural for a school bully to feel like this. He shook his head, put aside everything in the past, and ignored this guy who used to be a hungry wolf but is now just a clown. He just wanted to go to the classroom and confess his love to Mary. Hey, kid. However, he let Blake go, but Blake was not going to let him go. Where have you been in the past half month? We can't find anyone who wants to bully us. Guys, tell me, is he guilty of a heinous crime? Is this a rare opportunity now? Oh, Boss Black is so right. This kid must be afraid of boss and dare not come to school. Quote. Peter touched his nose with a speechless look on his face. Guys, you should get out of the way, it's time for class soon, isn't it? Are you showing off? Blake slapped Peter on the chest. His original intention was to push Peter back, but he found that the slap seemed to hit a rock, and his arm was numb from the shock, but he thought it was just an accident, forcing himself to show a fierce look. So what if you study well? I will beat you if I want to. As he spoke, he punched Peter in the face. Okay. Originally I didn't want to argue. Peter turned aside and moved away from Black's fist, without even moving his feet. But if you come to the door, then I have to settle things with you. Before Blake could react, a huge slap slapped him on the forehead. This was a unique skill that Peter and Zhao Yu learned. It was very powerful, he knew it very well. With this slap, Peter felt a sense of relief from the depths of his soul. No wonder, Shifu would smile every time he slapped him. Snap. Blake fell over in response. 2 more snaps, and Blake's 2 followers also followed in Blake's footsteps. After receiving this slap, Blake felt dizzy and couldn't get up for a while. The same goes for his 2 followers, who are like worms crawling on the ground, but they can't get up. This is a subtle force-generating technique. If you slap it on a person, it will make your muscles and bones numb. Now if you slap it on the forehead, although you won't become an idiot, you will still be in a coma for a while. Peter was not curious about their status. Although his control of his power is not exquisite, at least he will not hurt people at will. He clapped his hands. Okay guys, just calm down here for a while, I'm going to class. He smiled, nodded to the other classmates who were watching all this in surprise, and walked upstairs. What did I see? The weakest guy in the school beat Black. Is nothing going to happen? Blake can't get up yet. Look at it, it looks like a worm. It's disgusting. I think he brought it on himself. He often bullies others, is he being bullied back now? Peter didn't care about these words. He quickly went upstairs and entered the classroom. Almost side by side with the teacher, we stepped in at the same time. The bald teacher with glasses was surprised by this. He knew something about Peter, a very smart, but cowardly child with low self-esteem. If it weren't for his good grades, he would almost ignore him. However, now, he felt that there was an upward and vigorous aura in this child, which was the vibrant sunshine. In the classroom, almost all the students have arrived. Peter paused for a moment. He glanced over and focused on the beautiful Mary for 2 seconds. Then he bowed to the teacher beside him. Teacher, I have something very important to do. Please give me a few minutes. Time, okay. The bald teacher smiled and said, why not? Thanks. After saying that, Peter walked up to the podium with his head held high. Hey, guys. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Is this Peter? Harry asked a little fat man next to him. Will he have an older brother or younger brother? The little fat man rolled his eyes. Unless his father brought him down from heaven. Harry shrugged. I have 2 very important things to solemnly declare. He said loudly, without any stage fright, although he was still a little nervous in his heart. First, he stretched out his finger. I want to tell everyone that I am Peter Parker. But I am not the Peter Parker of the past. I am a brand new Peter Parker. I will not feel inferior or cowardly. I think if you leave today, if you close your eyes, you can see it. Ooh, I saw it, Peter, I had my eyes on. Everyone was surprised and burst into laughter. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.